and gentlemen, the show is about to start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
It's time for Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Built by the Barndominium Company, served by Chicken Cock Whiskey, and part of the Chief Sports Network.
Touchdown Carolina! Touchdown Ace Sanders! Pressure! And he just dives in!
J.C. Sherberg, Phil Molinax, and Jamie Bradford.
All right, greetings, good morning, and happy Friday. Welcome aboard and welcome home. Inside the Gamecocks, the show, proudly presented by our friends at Resto Pros. Resto Pros of the Midlands, Resto Pros Midlands, SC.com. They're there when you need them. Served by Chicken Cock Bourbon and always built by our friends at the Barndo Co. thebarndominiumco.com, building your dream home in the Carolinas, in Georgia, and in Tennessee. Mad Dog Mullinax or Phil? And myself, JB, here until Phil's here till 2. I'm going to dip at 1 today. All right. Phil, I've got a round of golf. It got moved up.
Tea times.
Look, yeah. So, in my defense, we were supposed to play with my buddy Aaron Beasley, who owns Palm Casual, and he had to leave town unexpectedly for work, and so we were supposed to play at the country club, and that kind of got moved around. So I do have a string that I'll pull from time to time to get on the ocean course, and I did pull it today because my friend is in town from Delaware who's a golf pro up there, and I promised him an outstanding round of golf while we were here. We had it scheduled for a little bit later on. They had to move it up. We're hoping to avoid some weather, and that's why that happened. So it's not like I'm just going to go to the Muni. Like I'm not just going to go just hacking around at some dumpster fire of a golf. I'm going to be at the ocean course.
It's a legitimate course. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And the last time that I played there, I shot an 80, which means today I'll shoot about 125.
Right.
That's kind of how that works. But fear not. It will be a fun final hour without me here. Matt Anderson will be here to co-host, and John Strickland will be here at noon all the way till 2:00. And so you'll get a heavy dose of Gamecock football with our friend John, who will begin today his weekly appearances on Fridays. As a matter of fact, Gamecock football fans, if you are a fan of our program and if you are a friend of South Carolina football, you will be one happy camper as we begin to add our weekly slate of talent, if you will. And all of them were talented on the field. John Strickland, Michael Flint will begin next week as well. John and Michael will be in on Fridays together, and we are certainly looking forward to that. We'll also be joined in the coming weeks, which will be a part of our weekly schedule with these two gentlemen. Pat DeMarco will be on every week. Stephen Garcia will be on every week, and Perry Orth will be on every week as well, as we get you into football season and get you through football season. Really looking forward to those guys being a part of our coverage of the Gamecocks for the next few months, and fired up about that. They'll do a better job than we could do, and that's why they're going to be here. So we're excited about that. SEC Media Days is now over, and we will look back on that. Look here, really, honestly, very quiet. Very quiet. Nothing over there. I mean, you're when you ask people, you ask the Brad Crawfords of the world, for instance, takeaways, they'll have their takeaways. That's their job. They're in the national media, Phil. They're supposed to write about those things, but there's nothing that everybody's talking about, if you will. And, right. And so it's just kind of on to football now, and on to what should be a really good opening week slate, August the 31st. Clearly, the Gamecocks have Old Dominion, but the SEC slate is headlined by A&M and Notre Dame, which is the site of College Game Day that week. And you've got LSU and Southern Cal on that Sunday out in Vegas. You've got Georgia and Clemson and Atlanta on that Saturday. You've got Florida and Miami playing down in the Swamp on that Saturday as well. So there's a bunch of good games. Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech, and that's not near as high profile of a game as any that I just mentioned, of course, as we all well know. But if the Commodores can open up the season in Nashville with an upset of the Hokies, maybe they'll be on to something this year. Who knows? So, a bunch of good stuff to pay attention to with August 31st really right around the corner. This morning, Mad Dog, it was crystal ball time for the staff of the Big Spur, as both Hale McGranahan, who hinted at this yesterday on our program, and Tony Morrell have entered crystal ball picks for Malik Clark, the wide receiver out of Rock Thrill. Now, here's the thing. Crystal balls are what they are, as we all well know. Things can happen, things can change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this is really important because it seems like Carolina is on track, Phil, to fix a problem that they've kind of had, which is signing high quality, high end receivers, not out of the portal necessarily, which you certainly want to be able to do that. Clearly, like they signed Juice Wells, they've signed a lot of guys out of the portal that they like, and there's a lot of guys out of the portal that are on this team this year that are expected to perform. But this would put a bow on a pretty darn good group of wide receivers out of the high school class. Lex Cyrus, the most recent commitment out of Pennsylvania, whom they tugged away from Penn State. Brian Rowe, the 4-star from Concord, North Carolina. And then, of course, the young man who committed first back on October the 26th of 2023, the brother of Lenore Sellers, Jaden Sellers. All recently, and it was pointed out by Tony and Hale this morning that one of the main reasons for Malik Clark's shift, maybe from that other Carolina to this one, is the addition of wide receivers coach Mike Furry. And it was also pointed out to us by JC that, of course, Mike Furry had a heavy hand. I don't want to say the only hand, but a heavy hand in luring Harrisburg, Pennsylvania's Lex Cyrus to town as well. Now, the easy thing to do is to throw shots at the previous receivers coach, and he will not be doing that around here because Justin Stepp is a heck of a developer and he's a better person, and he gave everything he had to South Carolina. We'll have to see how these guys develop under Mike Furry. We don't have enough information for that. But when it comes to signing players, signing wide receivers, a room that only a couple of years ago and just recently a lot of people looked at in the spring before they kind of started adding, or prior to the spring, before they started adding some of these JUCO guys, you were scratching your head wondering, well, who's going to catch the football, and are they any good? And it looks like Mike Furry has begun to put his handprint on this room.
Yeah, it was, looking like, heading into this year, you've got Harbor, and then guys who really haven't had a lot of experience or playing time. Just, it is what it is. We've seen Tyshawn Russell and Mangrum every once in a while, but only in like relief or mop-up duty, against smaller schools and things like that. And one of the topics of conversation heading into this year is, the running back room has been, completely overhauled and looks good on paper. And then you got a few question marks on the outside of the offense. So it's good that, while you've got, because I think you accompany what we're doing this year, or what Beamer's got going on in 2025, right? And you're looking at it, 1, 2, 3 of the top 5 rated recruits are wide receivers for the 2025 class. When you put that with the talented freshmen that are on the team this year, it looks like you're beginning to build that room up to where it needs to be to give Lenore Sellers weapons, because he is going to be here at least for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to need guys to throw to. So here we are. Hats off to Furry for really getting in there and pulling some, big name wide receiver recruits. I just wish that we could have that conversation without so many people just immediately trying to dump on the last guy. The next guy's success is not, a reason or contingent upon the previous guy's success. So I don't understand that, although it looks like we've got us one in Furry for sure, because it seems like a lot of players like him, previous head coaching experience. This guy is, the real deal. So it was an interesting situation that brought him here to Carolina. One that when you look back on, it was like, well, I guess, hopefully we'll be able to laugh about it at the end of the season, but happy to have him on board. And it looks like he's making some serious waves here.
Yeah, I think so. And look, here's the thing about this. over the last couple of years, certain rooms have had their problems. Obviously, linebacker had an issue. They've solved that, at least for the time being. Wide receiver has, you feel like, had an issue. Again, I like, it's kind of hard to have that conversation totally completely, if that makes sense. I know like last year it was Xavier Legette's world, and then after that you never really, I don't know if you had the solid number 2, but you did have Xavier Legette. Had you had Juice Wells, you would have probably, looking back on it, had the most dynamic duo of receivers in the league. Yeah. You could probably make the argument for the country as well at that point in time. I mean, those guys are just elite talents. But when they get a fire, this staff has been putting the fires out. The issue is the consistency, and it's not like an issue that's only South Carolina's problem. This is in the portal world that we live in the NIL world that we live in. You can have a problem that originates literally out of nowhere. You could feel like you've got a room that is in really good shape, and then all of a sudden it is just in terrible shape. I mean, for instance, if it appears as it stands today on July the 19th, 2024, that the future of the quarterback room at South Carolina is in really good hands. Number one, you're going to start a redshirt freshman who has 2 years to play, maybe 3, depending on what happens. 2 years would mean that he gets drafted. It's kind of an FYI. Yeah. So realistically, you're sitting here going, this, as long as he's healthy, he's here for 2 years or 3 years, and they seem to be recruiting well behind him. But Phil, at the end of the season, I'm not saying this would happen, but it could. You get to the end of the year and go into the offseason, and for whatever reason, Lenora Sellers has had an outstanding year, and it's just really hard to not want to try your hand at the transfer portal and see what type of NIL deals are out there, and he leaves. All of a sudden, your quarterback room is seemingly in ruins because you're now throwing somebody into the fire, or you're having to go back to the portal, introduce them to what you're going to do here offensively, and then you got a question mark again, right? So at the end of this season, you're going to lose a bunch of linebackers. They've got a bunch of young linebackers on the team. They have young linebackers committed, and they'll probably go back to the portal and add another 1 or 2 as well, and hopefully be able to just combat that. But it looks like they've solved the linebacker situation. But if you get to the end of the year and Wendell Gregory and Fred Johnson decide that they want to hit the portal, you got a problem again. So it's being able to maintain a talented, consistent roster with especially with guys who have played, which means you've got some maturity and you've got some experience, is really, really, really hard. And in today's world, it's really, really, really hard. I personally think that this staff at South Carolina has done a pretty good job of filling in the gaps. It takes time to do that. It takes time to recruit, and it takes time to sign guys and establish relationships and all those type things. I overall think that they've done a pretty good job. Now, can you maintain it? Is there something that under Coach Beamer's leadership they can change to maintain consistency and not have guys depart or whatever? I don't know. I don't have that answer. I'm not sure that anybody has that answer. But overall, when we see these problems, running back room, they solve that problem in the offseason. I mean, right? I mean, goodness gracious, it seems like it's one of the strengths now. Wide receiver, it seems like this problem is working on getting solved. Offensive line, they've signed a ton of young, talented guys. I had somebody mention to me the other day, yeah, they still need to continue to recruit better on the offensive line. I would remove the word better. I don't know how much better they can recruit on the. They signed 2 of the best tackles in the country last year. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to sign,
right?
Yeah, you need to continue to sign talented players, but how much better can it get than signing 2 of the top 10 tackles in college in football? I don't know. Yeah. So maintaining that consistency is hard to do, but it does look like when a fire comes up that this staff so far has been able to handle putting it out.
Yeah, but I mean, they have successfully handled some situations that, that are relatively new, but are going to be more commonplace in these times. And, it's a holistic approach, right? You can't just be like, well, we'll just get everything we need out of the portal and recruit small recruiting classes. And you can't just be like, well, we'll take, I don't want anybody who didn't join as a freshman, red shirt, and go through the whole thing, because that process is old and outdated. It's a fine balance and mix of both. And the most successful programs, I think, when we look back, say 5-6 years from now, are going to be the ones who have taken that entire approach, where they have continued to fill up the recruiting classes from the high school ranks, as well as supplementing where they need to in the portal. And I know coming off a 5-7 season, it's sometimes hard to see it this way, but Coach Beamer and staff have been pretty successful navigating these early days of the new time in college football.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. There's the old days are gone, and it's hard for any fan base. This is not specific to South Carolina.
Right.
There are a lot of teams with way more problems than the Gamecocks have. But it is really hard mentally to make the transition, because the world that you grew up in, and the world that I grew up in, and if I look in the Nanosport chat box here, Quantrell and Hope and Steve, it's great to see all of y'all today. Hey, Hope, and Charles and Craig, all of us, we grew up in a college football world where you recruited to your needs based on what left for the NFL and what graduated. And you would have players, I know, who occasionally would quit. You did have it's not like you couldn't transfer. You could. Yeah. You had transfers. They would have to sit out wherever they were going. But it wasn't like today, where at the end of the year, you had to re-recruit your entire roster. That wasn't the world that we lived in. Coach Mangus was on with us a month ago, and Coach Mangus said that at the end of the year, you hopped in your truck and you went off recruiting. You talked to your team. Hey, guys, good year. We got bowl practice coming up. God forbid you don't have bowl practice coming up, whatever it is. And you went off and you recruited. But now you have every head coach who's got any sense who has to sit down. And I know that Coach Beamer made some adjustments with this a couple of years ago. Matter of fact, at the end of the season, he was off ready to sign the next group. Of course, he was in a little bit of a different situation at that point in time. He had gotten through COVID and had just gotten to South Carolina. Like, they needed to sign players. But one of the things that happened during this period in late November, early December, was you had a bunch of guys on this team going, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know if I'm coming back. I haven't talked to coach. And so he made some adjustments, but now you have to do that at the end of the year. You have to meet with all of your guys, right? So that's where the disconnect still is. It's connecting. We're getting there. But as fans, we still have this piece of our brain. This is the way that I view this, Phil, that says, okay, well, we've got all these guys in the pipeline for this position. Now let's go fill up this position here. But what we forget is how quickly it can all fall apart, right? Because of how much access these players have to the outside world, how much freedom they have to be able to go do whatever they want to do without any contracts holding them in place anywhere. And tampering and all, like, tampering does exist. It happens all over the place. And so it's just not as easy as just, oh, man, we got this pipeline full at tackle and this pipeline full at guard and this pipeline full here. That if we could just fix this wide receiver room, or it's just not that anymore. No. Because at the end of the year, Mike Furry could have a great year and depart for the NFL. Someone calls him, hey, man, we'd love you to come coach wide receivers for the Detroit Lions. I don't know if you happen to notice, but we almost just won the Super Bowl. Ooh, that sounds pretty good to me. I don't have to recruit. I just get to go coach football. He leaves, all falls apart. So it can happen in the blink of an eye. I don't know what the magic potion is, but I do know when they've had problems here at South Carolina, they have been able to identify them. So far, they've been able to fix them. The problem is generally one problem offsets with another one. Once you solve that problem, you've got another fire to put out in today's world of college football. And getting all that to come together at one time has been really, really difficult for staffs all across the country.
Yeah. I mean, you're not alone in having this issue. And attrition was normal after every season, whether, it's just guys moving on or moving up. But now, I mean, everybody is a potential mover, right? With rare exceptions. I think that's one of the reasons why we, kind of lifted DeCarrion Joyner up, and are doing the same for Luke Doty. I mean, these 5-year, 6-year guys are harder and harder to come by, and even harder to hold on to if they're actually contributing on the field. Just because you're not going to get somebody every time who's going to bleed Garnet, but the culture you create inside the program is kind of the step one in retaining the roster every year. And with limited exceptions, there have been some departures, some that maybe were mutually beneficial, others that you'd hate to see go. But I mean, it is what it is. So you've got to pull from all your resources. You can't just be like, well, we'll just continue to build out of the high school ranks, keep bringing in talent. I mean, there's the concept now of not just too deep, but, bench depth, I think has to be now considered more and more and more. You've got to have talented guys that are not necessarily seeing the field early on in their careers, because somebody, like you said, could blow up, and next thing you know, there's a Instagram message from a not booster from another school who's not tampering and offering them money to come elsewhere. So, I mean, you've got to, it's all eyes open, and you want everything you can from a resource standpoint when it comes to talent and on-field time and minutes and things like that. You just got to, you can't continue to be like, well, we got 3 guys and hoping one of them doesn't, leave and the other 2 are graduating. And then we've got a bunch of who knows what behind it, scout team guys. So, yeah.
Well, Malik Clark, whenever he does commit, again, expected to commit now to the Gamecocks. A pair of crystal balls in this morning from the staff at the Big Spur, and this would all but do it for the wide receiving portion of the 2025 South Carolina recruiting class. We will talk more about this class and some things that came out of SEC Media Days. I want to give a quick shout out to our friend Brad Crawford, who does have an SEC Media Days notebook up on the Gamecocks. A couple of interesting little nuggets in there from him as well. We'll get to some of that. Again, John Strickland is ahead. Matt Anderson will join us later. And it's Friday, and we'll always have fun on Fridays. Hang tight. Inside the Gamecocks, the show, powered by Electric Bikes in Charleston. We'll be right back.
To win in sports, you have to adapt your strategy as the game changes. The same is true of investments. I'm Eric Ponder, an Edward Jones financial advisor, and I can be your financial coach. Call 864-862-2161. Edward Jones, member Civic.
The State Farm Personal Price Plan helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Contact local agent Gary Patterson for your personal price plan today.
Touchdown Brewer. Set up a screen, and it goes to Brewer. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown Brewer, his second of the day. Pitches it to Brewer, turns the corner, touchdown, number 3 of the afternoon.
Hey folks, it's Mike Morgan for Ryan Brewer Fence. That's right, you know the former Gamecock legend as a terrific college football player. Well, I know him as that too. I also know him as the guy that runs a great business, one of the best businesses in South Carolina. How do I know that? Well, for one, I'm actually a client of Ryan's. I had my home in Columbia done years ago, and his crew did an outstanding job, just as he does for everybody else. Whether you're in the market for a fence, railings, columns, or anything in between, their craftsmanship, their experience, and service, second to none. Ryan Brewer Fence has over 15 years of experience with consultation and installation of residential and commercial fencing and railings. Rest assured, your job will be done with an unparalleled level of expertise, and it's done on time, and they do it right the first time. Again, you're not going to do any better than Ryan Brewer. Ryan Brewer Fence. The website is ryanbrewer.net. Set up an appointment today. Tell them Mike sent you.
The State Farm Personal Price Plan helps you create an affordable price just for you.
Contact local agent Gary Patterson for your personal price plan today.
I said, oh, Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Disaster comes uninformed. During and after natural disasters or accidents, there can be a heavy loss to property. It can become extremely difficult to bounce back to what you knew before. Having your home or office destroyed or damaged by water, fire, smoke, or mold affects your personal and business lifestyle. Resto Pros of the Midlands is here to help. Open 24/7. Call them when you need them. 803-493-0170. Resto Pros of the Midlands. RestoProsMidlandsSC.com. Yeah, we're getting closer and closer. A lot of great moments out of Williams-Brice Stadium and elsewhere for Carolina football. Hoping to have a few more this year as well. Welcome back inside the Gamecocks, the show. Palm Casual. If you don't go to the games, that sucks. But I hope you do go to the games because they are so fun. But if you're not, if you're sitting on that back porch, you're going to want to be comfortable. I can tell you that. And Palm Casual will keep you comfortable. You're going to spend a little money. Like, they're not cheap. You're not going to buy crap at Palm Casual. This isn't Amazon where they drop it off and it's broken and then it falls apart in the sun and the rain. No. Good stuff. Good stuff. If you've got a pool and, you had some friends over a couple of weeks ago, 4th of July, everybody's having a good time. Your neighbor goes to sit down, splinter in the ass. Nobody wants that. Get rid of that crap and get some new stuff from Palm Casual. PalmCasual.com. They are Gamecock owned and Gamecock operated. As it pertains to this class too, Phil, I think I have, and you don't know, you never know. I used to love what Coach Spurrier would say at the end of every year. I loved it every year. And he said the same thing every year in his press conference. What do you think about the class, Coach? I don't know. Ask me in 2 or 3 years. We'll figure it out.
Right.
I mean, you don't know. You just don't. I mean, how many 5 stars have we seen that really kind of didn't maybe live up to the billing in which they had? Maybe they didn't live up. Maybe they didn't play as well as they could have. Maybe something happened. I don't know. How many 2 and 3 stars did we see that developed into outstanding football players? When you look at the 25 class, you have more of a chance, clearly, of having a bunch of guys who maybe seemingly or a little bit off the radar, who have a chance to develop into really good football players, than you do a bunch of superstars who are going to walk in and have an expectation, bam, already strapped right onto them, like Carolina has right now with Dylan Stewart, who I think is going to have an outstanding freshman season, and maybe even Josiah Thompson and a couple of others. However, when it comes to making sure that you are signing good football players, you want to be able to do that. And I know that we all look like we can. I'm not going to preach to somebody how to think and how to look at things. I'm not a huge, I don't get crazy about recruiting rankings, never really have. It's neat to see it when you're recruiting really well and you see that number 10 or 12 or, whatever it is. But I don't get all, I don't hang myself out to dry if some kid commits who doesn't have the top 250 on him or 4-star or whatever. I don't care. But they wouldn't do these rankings if people didn't care. Clearly, people care, and so I understand why people care, Phil. And at the end of the year, Malik Clark, and you look at a bunch of these other guys that we talked yesterday to Hale McGranahan about if a few of those go the way of the Gamecocks, and who knows what happens with Jared Smith and Bryce Davis right now, probably not necessarily trending in South Carolina's direction, but who knows? Kendall Daniels, guys like that, Lagonza Hayward. And there's going to be a couple of other names that probably come up between now and the end of the season. I can basically guarantee you. And others, we know that. At the end of the day, they're probably actually going to have a pretty good class, and they're going to have a bunch of guys that they feel like are kind of blue collar guys that they can develop, and they're going to have to go back to the portal, and they're going to have to go sign guys to be able to plug in and play and allow time some of these young men to develop. But I do believe if people are engaged in recruiting rankings, that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, and this is probably a top 25 class. I don't think it's a top 15 class, unless some sort of miracle happens, which it probably won't, Phil. So it's probably a top 25 solid recruiting class. And when you look back and you go, hey, look, man, they went 5-7. They've had multiple coaching changes. Pete Lembo, of course, departed the staff. You've got, of course, Mike Furry is making quite the impact. Markel Blackwell, a new coach. You've got a new director of operations again, in Darren Usher, whom we'll have on our program in the next couple of weeks. Talked to Darren yesterday or Wednesday. And they've had a bunch of other staff stuff going on, right? So when you have these changes, there could be some hiccups, and they've had some, but it's probably going to be a top 25 recruiting class, and I think that that's pretty solid for a program that that took a little bit of a step back last year from a record standpoint. At the end of the day, Phil, win games. Right. And if they will win games, go back to a bowl game this year, and you can't go to a bowl game without beating a couple of teams, at least that you are technically not supposed to beat, they'll be all right.
Yeah, I mean, and it really is time for Beamer and company to do that. I mean, you've gotten everything in place, coaching wise. You've got recruits coming in at a rate that you haven't seen maybe ever. I mean, when you're looking at the top recruits that are coming into South Carolina under Beamer, I mean, he's pulling some big time, heavy hitting players. And now the final piece, like you just said, JB, is you got to win the games. You got to win. Winning is what will continue to attract the top end talent. You don't want to end up having a rough season again, or God forbid, one even rougher than last year, although I don't see that repeating itself. To maintain what you have coming in, but not only that, now you have to maintain what you have. And if if the players start getting despondent and are not feeling the wins like they should, then they're all it's a lot easier for your eye to drift when the mood is low than it is when the mood is up and you're in that winning mentality.
Yeah, and giving time, if guys stick around, they develop. That's one of the things that was so awesome about the Coach Spurrier era is everybody always remembers the stars, and rightfully so. Why would you not? I mean, one of the great things about Coach Spurrier's era is that the large majority of superstars, especially after the first couple of years that they signed, generally played like superstars. But one of the other awesome things that was really great about that era was how players developed. And that's one of the things that I get I talk to a lot of football players about this all the time. Do you feel like if you would have left South Carolina after year one or year two that you would have ever developed into what you developed into? And the answer is always the same one, no. And there's no really real way to tell that, but like take Xavier Legette, for instance. All right. Do you remember when Xavier Legette committed to South Carolina? He was part of the 2019 class with Coach Muschamp. 24/7 had him as a 4-star wideout, of course, out of the beautiful, small but grand town of Mullins, South Carolina. And Xavier Legette, what was last year? 2023, just to be clear, right?
Yeah,
okay, so you had 19, 20, 21, 22. That's 4 seasons where you had a 4-star wide receiver who hadn't, quote, popped. And so it takes time with certain players for whatever reason. I don't know. It might just be developmental. They might lose a coach. You might have revolving door of quarterbacks. You might not have an offensive line. You might have a change at coordinator. I don't know. Who knows? But it does take time. And so, like, for instance, talking about the wide receiver group this year. So we entered the season, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. And the thought is the thought, not pointing fingers at anybody, but the thought is, well, I just don't know. Most people say we don't know how good that wide receiver room is, but there's a lot that say it's just not any good. But we don't know that. Like we haven't seen them play. We haven't seen them develop. Somebody's gonna have to catch the football. I mean, they're not. Last I checked, I've never seen a season where there was not even one completed pass. I don't even think that happens in Army. I think even Army completes a pass or two a game, right? So, these guys, like, there will be guys who develop. I've got my eyes, for what it's worth, on Tyshawn Russell. I've had it for a while. I've heard some really good things about him this summer. I personally think he's a starter. I think he's on the 2 deep at minimum, but I think he'll start. And we just don't know. So it takes guys time, and I hate hearing the towel being thrown in all the time on somebody. Well, this guy hasn't done anything.
Right.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. What do you mean he hasn't done anything? He just got here. Well, I haven't heard anything about Elijah Caldwell. Yeah, probably because he redshirted last year and he was a freshman. No wonder you haven't heard anything about him. Unless you've been in the locker room, I doubt you have.
I know. It's like, and with Tyshawn Russell too, it was like we were sitting in the stands in that Furman game where Sellers dropped that 60 air yard dime to him, and then but the one thing that sits bad and the thing that everybody remembers is, well, he dropped that pass. He dropped that what was it, 4th down, 3rd down or something like that, and you're like, well, it's a what have you done for me lately kind of deal. But see, that's the thing though, JB, about JC says it all the time, right? So this is a developmental game, and it is. I mean, because it's one thing to look like a man among boys when you are a man among boys on the high school field, and then that talent is then projected to your probability of being able to go to the NFL, right? That's what the star rating is. It was like, this guy has what we think is the raw talent enough to make it to the next level. The problem is there's that 3 years in between, or 2 years in between, where not only do you have to continue to advance your game and the coaches have to continue to develop you, but are you mentally in a spot, right, where you're mature enough to be able to focus on that? And that's tough. I mean, we all remember being 18, 19 years old and how maturity was one of the hardest things you could grab onto, right? And you have to create that inside the program. And I feel like what Coach Beamer has done has definitely supported that and allowed these players to take those steps physically, mentally, and move forward. And a lot of times that doesn't happen in front of our eyes, especially like Legette is the perfect example, right? I mean, before last year, really, it was, well, he drops a pass, and that, he's like, he doesn't have really good hands or this, that, and the other. And then
And he did have a problem with that.
yeah. And it's something you have to work through, whether that's, being on a larger stage, whether it's, working with a different style of quarterback, whatever those reasons are. I would rather that happen away from the field than to have to watch guys, and we've done this, develop on field in live gameplay, right? This is right back directly speaking to where depth comes into it, is because if you don't have that depth, you're having to thrust these guys out there as freshmen or as redshirt freshmen that are not ready to see the field. But when you start to build them up, you give them that ability to be able to develop in the background. And then when they finally get there to like a full sophomore or junior season, then they pop. And, it's specifically what Spurrier was talking about. Ask me in 2 or 3 years. These kids, look at Nick Harbor. Huge top-rated recruit, right? Played as a freshman, and he had some great moments, but he also had some freshman moments. And we watched him kind of develop through the year as he was having to be thrust into it with the lack of depth in the wide receiver room last year. This year, little better. So it's just going to continue to get better and better. But a lot of times, and fans just need to realize this, is that development is not going to be for your eyes. You get to see a more polished product by the hard work that's being done all in the background. And you got to trust the process, or you can just, complain about it and, and look like an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. People want to see players perform. I think one of the things that I have always really taken notice of around here when it comes to wide receivers and specifically is generally the wide receivers at South Carolina. Generally, I mean, you do get the Alshon Jeffries, right? You do get the Debos that have come along, been highly recruited kids, and they perform like a highly recruited kid fairly quickly. Of course, Debo had a lot of tools in the bag, but one of the things that I have always enjoyed watching at South Carolina is how many wide receivers developed here, because there's been if you actually really go back, if you get a chance, go to thebigspur.com and go back and look at all the recruiting classes. Look at how many high-profile wide receivers have been signed to South Carolina and never really panned out in the way in which you hoped they could when they committed. I'm talking 4-star type guys. And there's a laundry list of them. And I don't want to necessarily mention them all by name, but there's a lot of them. I'm not kidding. You can go back and look and read it for yourself. Guys who you were like, man, I guess Quentin Smith, Terry Guger, and all these guys who had just Joe Hills. High profile. And I've always felt like the wide receiver position is such a developmental position. Somebody mentioned in the chat box earlier, Kenny McKinley. Kenny and I had class together. I helped him get through a business econ class. I don't know how the hell he got through it, but he did. He was one of the great dudes on the planet. He wore, what were those jeans called? Jinkos? Remember the Jinkos?
Yes, Jinkos.
He wore Jinkos all the time.
Kenny McKinley wore Jinkos, really?
Oh yeah.
I love it.
Man, we had a group, Kenny and me and Bobby Wallace and Drew Martin and Alex Ferrato. There was a bunch of us that sat together in this one business econ class, and Kenny and I cheated every class. We shared a system. The time limit, statute of limitations has passed, and so who cares? But Kenny was a converted quarterback, right? And one of the things that Kenny used to do when we were in class was draw plays. It was crazy. And I would look at it and I'm like, what are you doing? And he kind of learned maybe from Coach Spurrier, like that creative to have that creative mindset. And he maybe that's why he wasn't the best student, at least in this class, because he was so focused on football. But he had this incredible mind of being able to see everything. And I remember, I can't remember all the specifics, but I would ask him about things like, so how do you know what this guy is doing, Kenny? And he was like, you just read them. Well, okay, so you just read them. So that was one of the things that Coach Spurrier would do, right? He'd stand on the sidelines. And that's why people like John Strickland will be here in about 10 minutes. And John will tell you how brilliant Coach Spurrier was, as everybody will, about being able to see it and literally put his finger in the dirt and draw up a play. And Kenny McKinley had that sixth sense. But what he also had was ability. And he had a lot of confidence. I mean, he was a very confident kid, very confident football player. And so when he went on the field, and that's why he popped his freshman year, and then the legend was born, right? He could see it and he could feel it. And just like I said, when I would say, well, how do you know this guy's, well, you read him, but he had the ability mid-play to be able to adjust and go do something different. So did Bruce Ellington, right? Who was not a wide receiver at Berkeley High School. Okay. There's a lot of guys who came through here. Nicky Jones, who played up at Burns. You know, Nick Jones was not a highly recruited wide receiver at all, and developed into an outstanding football player at South Carolina. So there's a long history of developing wide receivers at South Carolina. There's also a long history of high-profile wideouts coming to school and really not ever doing much. And I'm not saying they're bad people or none of that. It's not personal. I don't know what the reasons were either. I have no idea. But it just didn't work out. So you don't really ever know. So like when you look at this class, and we're pretty confident that Malik Clark is going to be a part of it. There seems to be a bunch of talented dudes in it. Do they all pan out? I don't know. We're going to find out. When you look at this group this year that's going to be on the field, and Amari Huggins Bruce, Mazio Bennett, who I think is going to be an outstanding football player. Right. Gage Larvadane, Nick Harbor. We all have high hopes for Nick Harbor. He's got as much ability as anybody in college football. What will it look like his sophomore season? You know, Peyton Mangrum, Jared Brown, Dale Von Campbell, Gatling, the Vandrevius Jacobs kid, very talented, still learning his way around the college football field and getting used to the speed of the game. Tyshawn Russell and Elijah Caldwell and all these guys, CJ Adams. There are going to be, Phil, a couple of guys this year from that group who separate themselves.
Yeah.
Don't know who they are, but they're going to separate themselves, and they'll be in the same category of the guys I just talked about. We will look back in a few years and go, my God, that kid could flat out play. And you got to remind yourself sometimes of these moments right here where we had no idea whether he could play going into this season.
No. I mean, and it wouldn't surprise me if you're sitting there, looking at the roster this year as we head into this season, that there could be, 3 potential NFL wide receivers on this roster. 4. I mean, you just never know, though, until they've had this time to take the next step in their game to be able to execute consistently, operate in a fashion that's going to make them as, the best player they can be inside and out. And it's fun, I mean, that's one of the things I love, because there's always like, especially as we head into camp season, JB, it's like I listen to what the other players say about, their teammates. And those are the guys you kind of keep an eye on. And there's always a guy, or two that you weren't expecting, that didn't get all the July hype, even as we're, grasping at straws to figure out who's going to be the guy. And that one guy will just be like, something will click, right? I mean, and it happens to all of us. Like, we get into these situations where we're having to struggle or do something, and you have this moment of clarity, or this moment that just clicks, right? And you're like, I got it, right? I mean, it's just the way life is, and it's like, and of course, football is allegorical of life for sure. And I love to see those moments where a guy just comes on and it just clicks for him.
Yeah. And I think too, you made a really good point about watching players develop on the field during the season. That generally does indicate some sort of depth issue. Generally, I mean, you go back to Clowney is such an elite example.
Well, I mean, that's what, and I was going to say that earlier. Is like there is a guy on this roster, right, that we are expecting to be ahead of that learning curve.
Yeah, Dylan Stewart.
Right? And Dylan Stewart,
I think
right.
so. But like,
he's still going to have his moments too. He's got all the physical attributes and capabilities and things like that, but you can't be a freshman and at least have one or two moments where you look like a freshman. It just happens.
No, and I think to your point, I think that there's really only a couple of examples on a football field where you do feel comfortable. He's just too talented. We just can't take him off the field. And not having to press him in there because of an injury or lack, whatever other reason a lack of depth may come from. But like, okay, sometimes in the SEC, you'll see some big 350-pound cat at defensive tackle. And you're like, this guy, if he got anywhere near my children, I would fear for their lives. He looks like he eats little kids. Why is he on the field?
Right. Yeah.
Well, sometimes you have to put him on the field, but it's not because you don't have other play. Like that's a position you can get away with that. But you're talking about, having wide receivers develop who shouldn't be out there developing in the middle of a game, offensive linemen, quarterbacks, the things that safety, like you put a young safety back there who's uberly talented, but really not a clue of what's going on. It looks real bad.
Right. It looks bad. Now the next year he may come back and look like an All-American. I mean, it's just you just never know. But I mean, it's an interesting conversation because there are. I mean, and yeah, that was the thing. Dylan Stewart is a guy that you're going to see play. I think Josiah Thompson is a guy you're going to see play at least 3 games to get some experience. You want to be able to get these guys experience. Stewart, I would imagine, is going to play a lot more than just 3 games. He probably not looking at a red shirt for Dylan Stewart.
I think
barring
both of those
injury,
guys play more.
Then maybe Josiah too. Yeah,
I've been look, not to ramble off into La La Land here, and certainly not to interrupt you, but I just Josiah, the info that I have on Josiah Thompson is he's not he's ready. No, not that, but he's damn near close.
Yeah, right.
To summarize, he's not a he's unbelievably talented, but he's got it, and he's got you probably wish you had another 15 pounds on him, maybe another 20 pounds somewhere in there, because his body actually probably fit another 30 pounds or more. Right. I've seen him. He is a large human being. But it's the speed at which he plays, and that's where the eyeballs have taken people looking at that offensive line. When John's coming up, we're going to talk to him about it here in just a little bit. He plays at a fast speed for a young guy.
Yeah.
The question is, can you consistently play at that speed? Because in this league, one bad play can blow the whole thing up, as we all well know, if you're playing left tackle. And you can't be a liability over there. But I am a believer that probably, I'll say mid-season, because I don't want to be conservative. I don't know that Josiah Thompson is going to be able to just be left on the sidelines. I don't.
No,
I don't think that's going to be possible.
And there again, that's a testament to what we were saying earlier about the O-line recruiting classes. I mean, here we are, right? I mean, you had 2 freshmen out there last year, that held their own,
players.
Did well, right? I mean, and now they've got experience. Now you're adding another top talent to it, and I hope it's hard to keep him off the field. That means he's showing them something from top to bottom about himself that says he's ready to make the next step and he's ready to go again, because they're not going to throw him out there, barring the crazy injury that situation we saw last year, obviously notwithstanding, but you have to assume that the staff is capable and competent enough to where they're not going to put a guy out there who's not ready to be out there.
Yeah.
That they haven't seen something in practice, scrimmage, wherever that says, okay, he's ready.
Yeah.
Let's get him out there. We got to get him out there. And when your talent is so high, that tries to push that through, right? It was like, man, this guy's got the physical abilities. We just got to get him around that, get him around that corner and do whatever it takes to get him on there if they feel like they need to have that presence on the field. And as you get more and more 5- and 4-star talents in, that's the way it goes. You got to find ways to develop them a little quicker and get them on the field, even if it is in limited capacity.
Well, we have no capacity left in this hour. It is the end of the hour. John Strickland will join us next on the other side of the break and on the other side of the anthem. Hang tight. ITG will be right back.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more.
Ah, the summer solstice, when the ho-hum of the everyday is replaced by an overwhelming sense of freedom. A time for living, for rolling the windows down, cranking up the tunes, and blazing new trails. Now is your time. And Love Chevy is celebrating with incredible summer savings on the entire lineup of award-winning new Chevys. Unprecedented savings right now on the ride of your dreams. Love has them all, primed and fully equipped for your next adventure. And right now at the lowest prices of the year. The best prices anywhere, in fact. Love guarantees it. The others are still saying anything to lure you in and let you down. With the same old gimmicks and ridiculous add-ons. Love is different. Over 6 decades of honesty and integrity, and the long-standing belief that car buying should actually be a whole bunch of fun. Now is your time at Love Chevy, I-26 at Harbison, and at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
That's the power of love. Love Chevy.
Hey Gamecock Nation, my name is Kyle, longtime listener of the show and avid golfer. I wanted to take my game to the next level, but let's face it, golf is a hard game to learn on your own. I heard the ad from McKellar Enterprises and reached out to the owner and former Gamecock golfer, Meredith Taylor. In just 2 months of working with Meredith, I shot my lowest round ever, and I've never felt more confident in my golf game. So if you're looking to take your game to the next level, go to McKellarEnterprises.org and book your lesson today with former Gamecock golfer, Meredith Taylor. Go Gamecocks.
The national anthem brought to you by Edward Jones and Eric Ponder. Eric Ponder is a graduate at the University of South Carolina. He has served us on the southwest border. He has served us in the Middle East, and now he'll hopefully serve all of our bank accounts and our retirement plans with Edward Jones. Eric is awesome. He's got a great family. He's incredibly smart. And if you need somebody to help direct your future, 864-862-2161 is his phone number. Eric Ponder, Edward Jones, presenting the national anthem here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Join for the final 2 hours and look forward to Fridays as we head into football season and through it. The great John Strickland. What's up, brother?
What's going on, guys?
What's up?
We're gonna have to do a bourbon segment with you every week as well, where you just give us you give us one of your rare bottles of bourbon. Give us the rundown on it. Why that's your bourbon pick for the evening. I think it spice things up around here, to put it
I'll tell you what, I was down at my buddy's house in Somerville last weekend, and we had a little bottle share, and I cracked my rarest bottle I have, and it's fantastic.
There you go. Well, I'll this fall we'll share some bourbon together in Columbia, as I'll be up there, of course, all the time. John, got some breaking news here real quick from the SEC. This was expected out today at noon, and it is. The Media Days preseason poll is available, and South Carolina, as we pretty much thought, is projected to finish 13th in the league, behind the 12th projected Florida Gators and ahead of the 14th projected Arkansas Razorbacks, rounding out the bottom of the order there at 15 and 16, Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. Georgia has been picked by the media to win the league, and Texas has been picked to finish second, Bama third, Ole Miss fourth, LSU fifth, Missouri sixth, Tennessee seventh, Oklahoma eighth, Texas A&M ninth, Auburn 10th, Kentucky 11th, and then there's Florida, South Carolina, and so on and so forth. But there's a little bit of a theme in that 13th selection theme. The basketball program was picked 13th prior to the season, this past year, and Lamont Paris in his program were able to propel that. Let me add this, John. I want to get your response to this too. So, I was reading something from Brad Crawford this morning, and he said that well, I'll just quote it. This is out of his South Carolina Media Days notebook. He said, "It was quite an appearance from the Gamecocks at SEC Media Days. I've covered about 10 of these things, all with varying levels of interest in Carolina from other media members from a national standpoint. I'd say the program's outside expectations are extremely low, and if the Gamecocks get to bowl season, many would be surprised. Beamer should be able to actually use the nobody believes in us mantra this fall. Whether that works or not, who knows? But whatever it takes to motivate college football players, you do it." Certainly looks like that's going to be something that he'll need to do here, because truly nobody outside of their program believes in them.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be the case, does it? Kind of expected. My prediction was they'd pick us somewhere between 12 and 13. I think the Florida, South Carolina could have flipped either way. But the rest of it I thought is about what the media would pick. But I don't know if anybody can go back and name any year that they got all this right.
No,
never.
I don't think so. I will say this: hat tip to whoever it was in the media that did pick Carolina to win the league this year. They did receive 1 point to actually win the conference. So not sure who that is. I'm trying to rack my brain as to who could that be. I don't know, but somebody there did that. Look, we talked about this the other day, John, Phil, and I, and I don't know if JC was on or not. Shane is really good. I don't care what people think about Shane Beamer. If you look at that team in the upstate, they have long not cared what people. Well, they do care what people say about Dabo Swinney, because they got their little Twitter bandits all over the place beating you up. Of course, South Carolina's got plenty of those little bandits too.
Yeah.
But Dabo Swinney never cared. He was going to be him. He was going to say the things he was going to say. He was going to create the narrative that he wanted to create, and it worked. and they went on to win 2 national championships and a slew of ACC titles, and they've been in all these college ball playoffs in the whole 9 yards. I'm not saying that South Carolina and Shane Beamer should just follow that model or anything like that. What I am saying is Shane Beamer is Shane Beamer. You know Shane very well. I know Shane. Shane's a great human being. He's awesome. I think he's a damn good football coach. I think he's an incredible dude to work for, based on everything that I've been told. He's an unbelievable family guy. Anybody that plays for him loves him. Anything you hear differently, hogwash. It's a bunch of crap. With that said, I don't. People sometimes get maybe turned off by how he does this or how he does that, or he's going to play the victim card, or he's got a chip on his shoulder. So what? It works for Shane Beamer. So freaking what? And if there's ever a lane to go down, here's his lane. This is his lane. And the reality of it is, he's got a schedule at the beginning of the season that I think is very honest and fair for this team. I know you got to go to Kentucky week 2, and I know that's difficult. But if you go up there and win, you get to host LSU the following week, and then you've got Akron, and you open with Old Dominion. Like, you've got a very balanced slate where you could literally rub it in a lot of people's faces early on. Like, it's not like one of those things, John, I know I'm rambling, but where you'll get to week 3 and you'll go, well, they haven't played anybody. But they also aren't playing in Tuscaloosa. So I think it's a very fair opportunity for them to be able to open up and turn some heads. And I think that this gives them even more ammunition with only 14 days until they get things going in Columbia.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, some people are just haters. They're going to hate, especially if it's not your coach of your team. And people are just going to hate on Beamer or hate on, another team's coach or whatever. That's just the days we live in, especially with social media. But yeah, I mean, listen, if you don't know, Shane is a very passionate guy, very passionate, right? So he's going to get fired up. He's going to say what he says, and it is what it is. But he means well by all of it. Like, Shane is a fierce competitor. And, if you talk to any of the players, they'll tell you, like, hey, we love Coach Beamer. He's like a player. Like, he's like one of us, He's got that chip on his shoulder and is ready to get out there and, knock somebody in the dirt. As far as the schedule goes, yeah. I mean, I think at the beginning of the year, I think the schedule's very favorable. I was talking with one of our starting D tackles that I've known for a while. Hung out with him 3 or 4 weeks ago. And, I've been telling y'all this since springtime. Remember, I've been saying this defense is going to be for real. He literally said, this defense is going to shock everybody. He says, Strick, it's the first time we've had depth to where I don't have to play 40 or 50 plays a game. He says we have so much depth across the entire defense that we're not going to be in and come to fourth quarter, we're all wore out because we've already played 40 plays on defense, And he said that's just one thing a lot of people just don't get and don't see. And listen, we got some dudes on defense. I know some people like to talk about those 4 and 5 stars and all that stuff. Well, we got a lot of them over there on the defensive side of the ball. And some very talented guys with a ton of depth. I mean, this is probably the most depth this defense has had since 2013, in my opinion.
I don't think that I disagree with that at all. I'm a huge believer in this defense, John. I've been on that train for a while. I'm with you. You and I have talked about this. Speaking of that, by the way, the release just hit my email here about 2 minutes ago. Speaking of that defense, Debo Williams has been named a second team all SEC linebacker by the media. Tonka Hemingway and Nick Emanwari have made the third team defense. Hunter Rogers has been selected as second team special teams. And how about this? Rocket Sanders selected as second team running back by the media. as a second team running back by the media this year. And it was a tie. I do need to add that, alongside CJ Baxter out of Texas and with Florida's Montrell Johnson. But at the end of the day, oh no, I'm sorry. No, that was not a tie. Those two were tied. Rocket Sanders is a second team running back. Baxter and Montrell Johnson from Florida, they tied for the other running back position on the second team. Well, that should tell you something right there, as far as what the media remembers of Rocket Sanders at Arkansas, what they think this offense is probably going to look like. Of course, there's also a couple of, I mentioned Carolina got 1 vote to win the league. Well, Vanderbilt got 2. So we probably should take all this with a little bit of a grain of salt. I will say this on top of all that, not to go round and round and round and to confuse everybody here, because we'll come back and hit all of it. There's somebody who is omitted from all of this, and he ain't on offense and he ain't on defense. Can either one of you guess his name? He's a punter.
Kai
exactly.
Kroger, right.
Obviously, nobody remembers what happened 2 years ago, and they look back last year and think, well, that's the Kai Kroger. That's really Kai Kroger right there. Chips on the shoulder, man. You know, like if you're Shane Beamer, if you're guys like Kai Kroger can be such an asset. If you're talking about that defense, right, John?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, if Kai Kroger can put a bunch of teams inside the 20, that's where they're supposed to shine. So, you know, Kai Kroger, I hope you've already read the list, because a lot of the media members don't think that you're worth a crap, quite frankly.
Yeah. I think, honestly, I think Kai's probably, now maybe a little biased, I think he is the best punter. But, you know, Kai even said this not too long ago. He said he figured out what he was doing this past year, and it was something with his arm and the way he was dropping the ball. And he studied a lot of film on it this offseason, and he's got it figured out now to get back to, you know, how he was 2 years ago. So I think we look for Kai to have a big year this year. I really do. And then, you know, you're talking about Rocket. No surprise to me. I mean, we all watched the guy play, right? Mm-hmm. I used to hear Arkansas fans, and I have a few friends that are big Arkansas fans, just how great Rocket Sanders is. Okay, yeah, he was, and now he's with us, and I love it. And talking to this certain D tackle of ours, he told me that one guy and a whole group of guys were there, stayed, did not leave, didn't go visit family, which most people do during May. You could try and go see your family and have a little vacay and, you know, whatever, take a few weeks off or a couple weeks off. Rocket Sanders went nowhere the entire month of May, and the entire offensive line went nowhere the entire month of May. They all stayed here. They all worked out together. They all went through drills together. So I don't know. From this D tackle, I'm not going to name drop him. From this D tackle, though, but he said that the O-line is so improved. He says they are working harder than in all the years he's been at South Carolina, which has been a while. He says this is the most work he's ever seen an offensive line group put in. And I know it's because of last year, because you take in all the injuries and the performance just wasn't there. So those guys are, like Debo said, they're not hungry, they're starving. Okay, so they're ready. They're ready for this year. And I really think, you know, on the offensive side, I think you got about 8 guys who I think are probably going to be your potential starters. You know, usually always have one kind of emerge in fall ball during camp. You know, you always get a surprise guy that's just like, oh man, where did this come from? So who knows? But I think we got about 8 solid, maybe 9 solid linemen who I think it's still a toss-up on who's going to be the starting 5.
John, one of the things, we'll hit a quick timeout when we return. One of the things I want to ask you about is when they commence and they get going in the preseason, the depth that they now feel like they have on the offensive line, the depth that they feel like they have on the defensive line. I want you to take us through what that battle will look like in August, so they get prepared for the season with so many players, and what they feel like is a bunch of talent. I would anticipate it's probably going to be pretty nasty. So if you can take us through what those wars are like, we'll do that when we get back. We're powered by Electric Bikes of Charleston, electricbikescharleston.com, up to 60 miles on a full charge and up to 28 miles per hour. You can almost catch Nick Harbor on one of these things. Electric Bikes of Charleston. It's in Mount Pleasant, electricbikescharleston.com. They are Gamecock owned and operated. Hi, Michelle, if you're listening or watching in the store today or wherever you may be. We certainly can't thank you enough. Folks come from everywhere. Hey, Ace Chan is in from China. This is tremendous. We're being invaded already. Only about 12 hours after the Republican convention is over. We're all being hacked. So we'll Ace, hope you're well, and best of luck to you and wherever you go. All right, hang tight. Jim Moore with John Strickland will return.
There's nothing like Saturday in South Carolina. However you enjoy Gamecock football, Gamecock Traditions has a long-standing legacy of being a part of your game day. From tailgates to touchdowns, Gamecock Traditions has what you need and want with our beloved Block C logo. Get into Gamecock Traditions in Lexington or the Village at Sand Hill, or visit GamecockTraditions.com and have it shipped to your doorstep. We look forward to taking care of your family. Go Gamecocks.
I'm not allowed to tell the ref how bad he is, so I'm going to need you to do that for me. Oh. He said, "You're gone."
I'm a beggar who could use some help. I'm a seeker, searching for myself. I'm a rolling stone, just waiting on a friend. I'm a lover, wishing on a star for another, with a broken heart to hold each other close until the end.
Tony Pope State Farm is your go-to agent anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia for the service you deserve at the price you want. So try combining your home, life, auto, and or small business insurance today. Tony Pope State Farm has been in business for more than 30 years and can handle anything you need in the tri-state area. 843-851-2222 or visit TonyPope.com today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Nana's Porch, nanasporch.com. At Nana's Porch, they cater weddings, parties, and all kinds of special events. Their meals are served buffet style, and seconds, they're encouraged. Plus, they can bring their mobile food unit to bring on-site and serve your guests as a unique alternative for your catering needs. Inquire about rentals as well. nanasporch.com. Find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. 336-259-7550.
Bring on your forces of nature. Bring on the storm that's raging. If you get lost in the shadows, there's a fire inside you. Be the light that guides you. Come on, carry your flame. Carry it higher. Even in the darkness, carry your torches. Come on, carry your flame. Set the night on fire.
You sit in any of those seats, make sure you get the Gamecock Tradition to get dressed before Carolina football season. John, do you miss walking through that? Oh, where's John? He's taking a drink. It's all good. We figured you were taking a shot or something. You just didn't want anybody to
No,
see.
definitely not. I was down here. I have a piece of paper and pen down here, and I dropped it on the floor.
He's wiping it off his face. Yeah, no, it's all good, man. You know, how much do you miss walking through that tunnel, John?
Oh man, I have a funny story. I'll never forget it. Obviously, Clemson fight, didn't know it would be my last collegiate game. And then after I got cut from Washington, obviously I came back to Columbia. And the first game, Central Florida, Spurrier's first game, I sat in the student section for that game, and it was very weird.
Yeah.
Very, very weird not being out on the field. I mean, I don't even know how to explain it. It was probably the strangest, weirdest feeling I ever had in my life. And but yeah, those are the glory days, man. I miss it a lot. I don't miss fall camp, but definitely miss the game days. That's for sure.
Well, how about fall camp? I mean, we got plenty of Fridays to talk about this. Flint will be joining us on Friday starting next week, but we'd rather talk to somebody who actually played like you than
someone who actually shows up when we ask him to, too. That's all right. Hold on. We got them all. We got a whole off season pent up with Wando there. Yeah, you're all right.
I just had to do. Well, he called me the other day, freaking stumbling and bumbling. Hey, you got the key to the condo? I was like, no.
You got his voice down pat, by the way.
I can't find the key to the condo, man. I'm like, well, why don't you look for it? Have you looked for it? Hey, you sure you don't have it? I'm like, no, Mike. Like, I told you where I put it. Oh, all right, yeah, that's right. Of course, he said that he did call me at about 12:15 the night before, and he told me the next day that's what he was calling me about. I said at 12:15, no, you drank 2 bottles of wine and you wanted to yap about the Gamecocks. I'm not an idiot. Come on, man. I know you like a book. But anyways, but for real, I mean, every coach I think does this a little bit differently, right? I know you don't want to get people banged up in the preseason. Quite frankly, even as deep as Carolina feels like they may be on both lines of scrimmage, for what that's worth, one guy goes down and it impacts it, I think, a lot more than people kind of think. So, John, what do you anticipate now with the depth on the offensive side, even though a lot of those linemen are young, but very talented, but young. And then on the defensive side, where they have added some talent, I'm with you. What do you think that will look like this year? You know Travian, you know who taught Travian, you know what Travian thinks like, you know where he got it from. You know all the guys on the offense. There's 3 offensive line coaches on this team. You know what their mentality is, and then of course we all know Coach Beamer and what his is as well. So what do you think that's going to look like?
Well, I mean, obviously having depth is a plus. Okay, I think when you go into fall camp, you're going to have who the coaches felt like were your top 5 guys coming out of spring on the offensive line. Those are going to be right when you start camp. That'll be your first 5 guys, and then you'll have your second 5. And I think, like I said, I think there's 8 guys who could really fight for a chance to start. I mean, I just wrote it down while we were sitting here on break. I mean, Vershawn Lee, Simpkins, Ja'Kai Moore, Ball, Big Tree, Kason Henry, Marquis Anderson, and Josiah Thompson. Those are like my top 8 guys that I think. I mean, I think it's going to be a battle during the fall out of those 8 guys. And like I said, you always usually, we got some other guys that transferred in too that I didn't put on this list, but you can always get somebody that gets to fall camp that's just gradually gotten better from spring through summer workouts and drills coming into fall that always just kind of surprises you that you didn't think, well, we didn't hear much about this guy, but no, look, okay, now we see what this guy's got. So I like the depth. I think Rashawn Lee's a lot for center. I don't think there's any doubt about it. He's a super smart dude, great player. He's played a lot of football, so I think that's going to be your leader. And I think having an old guy like him at center is also going to help our young quarterback as well. So I'm super excited about these guys. It'll be a great battle, I think, throughout camp. Like I said, you'll have your first 5 that the coaches felt were the top 5 coming out of spring. And then you'll have your second 5, and those guys will just battle it out. And I'm sure they may, do some switcheroos, plug some guys in here and there and see how it gels together. But, that's just how I see the fall camp going. And I think those 8 guys are, in my opinion, the ones to really keep an eye on coming out of fall camp as who's going to be our starting 5.
All right. So, but you gotta hit somebody, and this fall practice, this camp, they get to hit this group of tackles and ends on the defensive side of the football. So what is that? I mean, how much do you hit? How much does that prepare you?
You got to hit, JB. There's just no way around it. You got to go live. If you're not doing some live stuff, then once you get in the game, it's just going to be unnatural. Okay, you want to have something that's common, and in football, teeing up and hiking the ball and hitting each other is part of the game. Now, I'm sure Coach Beamer and his staff have looked since last season with all the injuries. Hey, what can we do different? So I'm sure there's going to be some wrinkles thrown in. But I will tell you this, like Coach Spurrier, he didn't have those guys hitting a ton, okay? It was nothing like the days when I played for Lou Holtz, which I could say this, Lou Holtz, our practices were no joke, all right? And we didn't have all these injuries. Now, did we have some injuries? Yes, but we didn't have a ton of injuries. So I don't know, were the injuries just fluke? I don't know. Remember, we had that one year with Muschamp where we had a ton of injuries. We had a really good team that year, too. We just had a ton of injuries, and we wound up going 6-7. That was a year that we lost to Virginia up in Charlotte in the bowl game. There was a ton of injuries on that team that year, too. And I think you could look at that team just like last year's team. If you didn't have all those injuries, I think you're looking at least 3 more wins for each of those teams. So injuries, I don't know, man. Injuries are just so flukish. I think it's hard to really pinpoint, hey, why is this happening? But getting paid the money that those guys get paid over there, they got to figure out why it's happening. Because you can't. Last year's schedule was tough. This one's even tougher, and you can't afford to have a bunch of guys not on the field.
12:32. John Strickland here as a part of our coverage of Gamecock football. He'll be here generally just from 1 to 2 on Fridays. All right, I'm going to read you a left to right, left tackle to right tackle of projected starters, and you look. I know that you don't want to. I know some of these guys and have relationships with them, so I'm not trying to necessarily put you on the spot, but I just want to get your general thoughts on this group. I don't know if this is what it's going to look like, but I got a hunch it may. Big Tree, Trevon Baugh, Vershawn at center, Torricelli Simpkins, and if he's healthy, and from what I understand, he is fully healthy. Case and Henry at right tackle. Thoughts?
Yeah, obviously all those guys are in the 8 guys I named, so it's 5 out of the 8. So I could definitely see that being the lineup, no doubt about it.
To start the year,
now
clarify.
Simpkins playing tackle.
No, I had him at guard.
Okay, all right, and you got Tree at tackle.
Big Tree at left tackle, and Case and Henry at right tackle.
Okay.
Yeah. it's hard with Casey Henry, isn't it, John? I feel so bad for him. He's a very talented kid. He's just been hurt so much. How much do you trust a guy who's had that many injuries on the offensive line? How hard is it to go through that process?
I mean, it's tough. Like I said, this could have just been a fluke. He could come out this year and play every single game, and all's good. So, I'm hearing he's healthy and good to go right now. So, we'll see how spring goes for him. Some guys are just for whatever reason are a little more injury prone, than other guys, and it's just sometimes it just has to do with your genetic makeup. I mean, it just what it is. But yeah, I could definitely see those 5 guys right there. I do think your Marquis Anderson, him being injured all next year, the guy's for real. All right.
Right.
I think he's got a chance to be a great player, and maybe this year he's not a starter, but I could see Marquis Anderson being the starting center next year when Vershawn's gone. And then you have, Ball, Tree, a Josiah Thompson, and then a right tackle who that may be that steps up, but Marquis, I think, is going to be fighting hard for one of those starting guard spots. I can just tell you that right now.
It's hard to not be excited, guys, about the youth on the offensive line. You mentioned Marquis, of course, Cam Pringle. I don't know if this is a little fudged or not. I do know that Cam has reshaped a lot of his body this summer. JC mentioned that the other day. I was told the same thing. But he is listed at 6'8", 345 pounds. I don't know if he's
I've already
quite
told you he's huge. Yeah, no, he is. And with his hair, he's 6'9". Yeah.
But
he's a big dude.
He's a large man. Jatavius Shivers, Big Tree, Trevon Ball, obviously Josiah Thompson, Blake Franks. I mean, they have a bunch of youth that is really, really, really good. I think the future at this position is the ceiling is exceptionally high. The question comes with, in my opinion, Josiah Thompson, because John, he probably could still. Not probably. You know better than all of us. He could absolutely add another probably 20 or 30 pounds and be fine. His body
100.
can fit it. His legs are tree trunks, and up here is just it's starting to grow. So he's got plenty of room to pack it in. But when it comes to playing time, it's 2 things, right, John? One, are you any good? Like, are you a talented enough player to be able to actually play as a true freshman? And then number 2, at what speed do you play when you're in there? 1 or 2 bad snaps, guy comes around you get a big problem, and that can change everything clearly. So what have you learned about Josiah Thompson?
You got to add number 3 too, which is the mental. You got to add that too. So that's
I kind of lump that into the speed of the game, but you're
okay.
Right.
All right.
Yeah,
I got you.
You say it better than me. You're the offensive lineman. Don't let me correct you. But that's why I was thinking, like, is it clicking? Are you playing fast or not? Is the game slowed down and you're playing fast? Let me make it simple, right? So what do you know about him? We've seen him. I watched him. There's a reason why everybody in the world wanted him. But how fast can a guy like that generally get on the field?
Well, you saw Tree last year, didn't you? Second game of the year. He was in there playing, right? All right. So I think Josiah has all the upside in the world. There's a reason most of the recruiting sites had him as a 5-star, because he's legit, has all the tools to be a first-round pick in the draft as a tackle, okay? I've watched several spring practices this past spring. He looks good. He moves good. You got to remember, though, he's only, 17, 18 years old. And then you got some guys who have already been here in this offense and done it. I think if we had to, I think Josiah could step in and start at left tackle. Do I think where we're at today, is he the best one for that? No, he's not. He's not going to be the start unless bless this summer he's had has just been unbelievable, and he comes out in fall camp and just blows everybody away, okay? But the talent is there to where that could happen, but I don't see it happening. But I do see him getting a lot of reps throughout the season this year, and, who knows? Maybe halfway through the season, we look up and they're like, man, this guy's our best guy. We got to put him in. So who knows? But the potential's there. All right, the talent's there. I think just what I saw in spring, he's close, but he's not there yet. But that's why I had him as the only true freshman on my list as potential top 8 guys who could be in the starting lineup.
So Phil said something a little while ago, and he'll surprise you once in a while. Phil's smarter than he looks. He mentioned, I'm just kidding, Phil. We know you're not that smart.
No, that's right.
No, but he was talking about, look, because you mentioned just a minute ago, you mentioned Big Tree and Trevon, both those guys playing last year. And by the way, hugs and hand pounds to those guys for stepping in there and not only playing their rear ends off, but John, as you know, playing hurt. By the end of the year, the whole freaking offensive line was hurt.
Yeah, we had like 12 or 13 guys were injured at some point.
It's just crazy. I mean, Nick G out there with like a broken finger or something at the end of the year, and they're all playing. But Phil said earlier, he was like, "Look, did you basically? I don't want to watch kids. Nobody has interest in watching kids have to grow up in the middle of a game. Generally, that's because you don't have any depth or somebody's gone down. Something bad has happened. And I felt like last year, like you mentioned, those guys playing." In a perfect world, I'm not so sure that Shane Beamer really wanted to see his true freshman out there manning 2 very important positions.
I promise you he didn't.
Right.
but now, there's a silver lining because look, nobody can forgive the record. You look back, you go 5-7, you're 5-7. You're not 5-7 because we had injuries. You're 5-7. But those guys did play, and so if what I'm getting at here is with Josiah or any of the other young guys, dude, Cam Pringle, for instance, if they play and everybody's healthy, you wonder how fine of a line is that? Like, is it just because they're just better than all of these guys? Like, is that really because they're true freshmen? It's hard to imagine seeing a bunch of true freshman offensive linemen out there, although Georgia and Alabama seem to have one every year that shows up out of nowhere. It beats the crap out of everybody. So maybe South Carolina's got their guy. I don't know. But I guess I'm trying to figure out in my head, I don't think that you would see Josiah Thompson starting in games 1 or 2, for that matter, on the road at Kentucky. And but maybe by 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there, if it is all moving quickly for him, he is just so talented, it might be impossible to keep him off the field, regardless of whether everybody's healthy or not.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that at all. I think it's going to be tough for him to win one of the starting, either tackle. He's going to be working at left tackle, but it's going to be hard for him to beat out the guys who are already in front of him. I guarantee you he's going to get a lot of playing time, though, especially if, hopefully, you never know, because I hate saying this, but, maybe that first game, Old Dominion, maybe you got a 21-point lead, you can throw a guy in there like Josiah Thompson in for, 2 or 3 series and see how he performs. But the talent's there. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's going to have to catch up on strength. Okay. The weight room, but that's what they've been doing all summer. Obviously, I haven't seen any of these guys all summer except for our starting D tackle I hung out with 3 weeks ago. So he's got the talent. Do I see him being the starter week 1, week 2, week 3? I don't. But I do see him coming in a series or 2 and playing some.
It's 12:43. We need to step aside for a timeout. There's a couple of questions in the Nana Sports chat box that I'll throw at you when we get back John. A couple of other little nuggets to pass along as well from the media's preseason selections. Again, I'll have to dip out of here a little early today, but John will stick around. Matt Anderson is joining. They'll have all kinds of football to talk about, and really excited to listen to John talk more about that defense. I think as we get closer to the season, there's an excitement level that is building on that side of the ball, and I think it's warranted. So plenty of Carolina football to pass along, and we hope you'll stick with us. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
We got started in 1979. Because we're a manufacturer, we're able to control our costs. That's why we like to manufacture as much of the product as we can, because in our factory stores we can offer a competitive edge over other people around the country. When people come into one of our Palm Casuals, it's like they're buying their car at Detroit. They're going right to the factory and buying their car.
30-day money-back guarantee. That's a big deal with us. I mean, we give 30 days to do anything. I mean, return it, change it, get a different color, get your money back.
When you pull into a store and it says Palm Casual, you know you're at a factory store.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
This is Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Here are your hosts, J.C. Sherbert, Bill Mullinax, and Jamie Bradford.
Someday, lady, you'll accompany me where the rivers meet the sound and sea. I feel it in my soul, it's meant to be. Oh, someday, lady, you'll accompany me. Someday, lady, you'll accompany me. You will accompany me.
Yeah, we're beginning to see the end of summer. Far away.
Oh yeah, but that's all right. That's the beginning of football.
Yeah, I find, of course, so many reasons just to love every day of the life I live. I love all times of year, but there, I am a baseball guy, as y'all know. I love Carolina baseball. But boy, August through December is really a special time, and with football and all the holidays and all those type things.
Best time of year.
It is, man. It really is. It's just so. Even when you're not winning, it's still my social life, and I don't think I'll ever give that up. All right, Inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Barndo Co. A couple of things to pass along here. One of significance nationally, Alabama has decided to name the field, rightfully so, after Nick Saban, the best coach in the history of the game. Alabama's loss is the rest of our gain. He is amazing on TV. I cannot wait to watch him all year long on College Game Day and everywhere else. Wow, he is so good. So really excited about that. The quarterbacks named by the media, all SEC, Carson Beck on the first team, Quinn Ewers on the second, and Bama's Jalen Milroe is on the third. Carolina will get a dose of him, and third team running back Justice Haynes out of Alabama when they head to Tuscaloosa on October the 12th. That's going to be a challenge.
I was surprised that Milroe got picked over
Jackson Dart.
Yeah.
Well, Vanderbilt received 2 votes to win the league, John. I don't think that there's
must have been Vandy grads out in the media.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a lot of, who cares?
I mean, you're right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. None of this preseason mess matters.
I love it. You
Nah,
know,
it's something to talk about, though.
It's message
it
board and bulletin board fodder. What comes out of this one?
Yeah.
And this one was relatively mild and not very much news that has been, brought out of the first trip to Dallas. And I mean, my assumption was when we went into it was like, well, this thing is just going to completely circle around Texas and Oklahoma, and all the other coaches are going to get their fair share of questions about Texas and Oklahoma. And I feel like, it kind of played out that way.
It did. And then those guys are going to get welcome to the SEC. Texas, of course, already picked to finish second. All right. So a couple things here. Charles asked about Trevon Ball. He did play some right guard last year. Would you move him to left guard? That's where I've got him.
Here's my thing about guard. I think whether it's right or left, guard is guard. My true freshman year when I came into South Carolina, I wasn't the center. I was a guard. And I played both. And then even my second year, even though I was a backup center, I still would go in if something happened to somebody. I would go in at left guard or right guard. So guard is guard. In my opinion, I don't think one is more important than the other. It's totally different than, right tackle, left tackle. A right-handed quarterback, your left tackle better be the dude, okay? Because quarterback is going to have his back to that side. Versus if you had a left-handed quarterback, then your blind side's the right side. But as far as guard, it's interchangeable. I don't think either one matters more than the other. So really, honestly, doesn't matter.
I have a question. I have never met Big Tree. I've seen him, never met him. Last year, I do know that he was listed at 6'4", and this year he is listed at 6'6". Did he grow?
All right, I'll
grow
tell
2
you
inches?
this. I saw him a month ago. Talked to him. All right, I'm 6'4" and about a quarter. They listed me at 6'5". I'm about 6'4", 6'4" and a quarter. Tree's probably 3/4 of an inch to an inch taller than I am.
Okay. So we'll go with 6'5". 6'5".
Yeah. 6'5" and a quarter, maybe.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So 6'5". So we need to get with Steve Fink and get him to correct that. I think he's added.
You always get an inch added to your height.
I'm pretty sure
that is standard on all rosters across all sports.
Yeah. Poor Kamar Bell did not get an inch added. He is only 6'2". Everybody else on the offensive line is at least 6'5", according to our roster release.
Yeah, Vershawn's more about the 6'2 and a half, 6'3" height.
Yeah, Vershawn, yeah, that's true. They've got him at 6'4", and I've met Vershawn.
Okay,
and
so
I agree with you. I thought he was 6'3". So
they gave him the roster inch. Okay, so he's about 6'3". That's about what he is.
Yeah,
he's about an inch and a half shorter than I am.
I guess the roster inch and the 5th year bump.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw Vershawn about a month ago too. So I was I was around most of our offensive linemen about a month ago.
Well. Poor Kamar Bell, the transfer from FAU out of Moultrie, Georgia. He apparently must owe somebody some money because he didn't get the 1 inch. But if he either that or if he's listed at 6'2", he might not be it.
I off the top of my head, I can't remember about him.
Yeah. Well, height isn't everything. You could stand a bunch of dudes out there that are, all 6'8" and be softer than, the other side of the pillow. With that said,
it's good getting off the bus, though.
It does. Yeah. That's what I was about to say. I've seen a lot of buses roll up in Columbia and they get off and you go, yeah, no, that ain't gonna be a good day. But if you do get off and you're led by a bunch of guys who are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", who are your offensive linemen, and quite frankly, on the defensive side of the football as well. And I'll let you get in well more into the defense, John, as in hour 3 here. Of course, I'll have to take off. But but they do have a bunch of size over there, and they have a bunch of tackles, as you pointed out just a little while ago. And there is
or 5 or 6 deep, in my opinion, in the tackle rotation.
That's it's been a while.
Yeah, and they can all play. They can all play.
Right. I quite frankly, I want to squeeze this in. Since again, I got to get out of here in a few minutes. I really like Monkel Goodwin. Now, I don't think he'll start.
I don't think so, but yeah,
I like him. Yeah,
Yep.
I watched him in the spring game, and it does. You only have to see a couple of things to know if a kid can play. Now, for effort level and all that, I don't know. I'm not in practice. I have no idea. Just whether can the kid play or not. And there's a reason why he went to Alabama. I mean, the kid can play. I don't envision anybody, John. I don't envision anybody starting over Tonka, and I don't know
Boogie.
TJ. But I don't know. I don't know how you get all three of them on the field. But
I think you'll. I think TJ, Boogie, and Tonka are your top 3 guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be some combination of those 3. I mean, 100%. I mean, just from everything I've seen and just from the past season or whatever, those are your top 3 D tackles. And I think, one may start this game and another may start, who knows? It just depends, who they want to run out first. But, yeah, those 3 guys are going to be studs. And one of those 3 guys has told me the depth of the new guys that have come in is unbelievable. And he couldn't be more excited about this defensive front, just simply on depth purposes and not having to be out there 50 plays a game.
It's going to be interesting how Coach White handles the balance between talent and, the word just escaped me, but formation, right? So I mean, he's known for being the 4-2-5 guy coming in, right? And then they went to the more 3-3-5 to get the more athletic. Yeah. So I wonder if the same, kind of philosophy is going to be applied to this year's defense, and that it's not going to be just, okay, this is the defense we run. It's going to adapt to, who he feels is going to be the most productive every week, or even, play to play or however, because he's got a lot more options this year than he's probably had ever at Carolina.
That's scouting. I think it depends on who you're playing.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on the teams you're playing, and I'm not going to give away what I kind of know to the public, unfortunately. They'll just have to wait and see it. But I think with just the depth, I think you can interchange from the 4-2 to the 3-5. I mean, I think with the amount of depth on this team and the edge rushers we have this year. God, what was the number? What did we have? Only 21 sacks the entire year last year? Am I right?
It was bad.
It was not good.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think we increased that by at least 50%, if not more. That's just giving my honest opinion from my eye test and the talent I see on this team and the depth. The depth is so key. And a lot of people, your average football fan just doesn't realize it. Depth on defense is huge. It's a huge part of the game. Because offensive linemen, you're like, well, you got offensive linemen who are out there run 70-something plays a game. They don't come out and get subbed. Well, guess what? The offensive lineman is totally different because you're just blocking a guy. The defensive guys, they literally have to sprint every which way and do all this stuff to go get the ball carrier. Offensive linemen are kind of like just right there in their space. They're not sprinting to go, whatever, unless it's a screen pass. So defenders wear down quicker, and that's why the old saying goes, and it's just like my redshirt freshman year when we beat Clemson at home, we wore them down because we just stuffed the ball down their throats. So that's the old saying, hey, let's just stuff it down their throats. Let's just run and tire this defense out. And that's what happens. But if you got a ton of depth, ton of guys that can rotate in every series, it makes a world of difference. World of difference. And linebacker, I'm telling you, linebacker. I'm high on this defense. You know, I told y'all this a few months back on here that I think the defense early is probably going to have to win that Kentucky game for us.
They have to.
Yeah,
It's the defense's first quarter of the season. It is all on the defense.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I agree. And then let Lenoris come along.
Yeah.
And then hopefully, you know, that it just starts clicking for Lenoris, and then who knows what could happen with this team. I'm telling you, this team this year is not far off from being a really good team. They are close, and people just take 5 and 7 from last year when you had 50,000 guys on the team injured and not playing. You know, you had Spencer Rattler. Well, yeah, no doubt. Spencer was great, but he had so many players around him hurt. It was hard to get stuff going. So I think a healthy roster of the team we have this year can surprise some people.
Thank God for Spencer Rattler. The other thing about that defense too, if you're able to run the football, pick up first downs, sustain drives, and they just get to just continue to rest and itch to go back out there and not go, oh my God, we got to put our helmets back on again.
Yep.
You got a good thing going there, right, John? That's good. That's a good problem.
100%. That's a great problem.
All right. Here's the deal. Here's what's going to happen. I know I am just beloved by all of you. You just can't get enough of me, hopefully, because my wife can't stand to see me. But I have to get out of here. I got somewhere to be. Matt Anderson is joining. John will continue to drink and tell you more of what's in his mind. Water.
Hey, I am.
I'm going to start drinking, not water. No.
When we get off of here today, I have some things I have to do for work. So.
Oh yeah.
Well,
me too.
I'm going to go start drinking, and John's about to stop drinking.
Yeah.
We hit the old 1 o'clock on Friday.
That's right.
Oh man. John, love seeing you, my friend. Look forward to every Friday from here on out as we continue to get ready for the 2024 version of Gamecock football, and can't thank you enough.
Yes, sir. I always enjoy it, and super pumped to talk ball from here through January.
I'll cut you girls on in the truck here in just a little bit. Y'all
sounds good.
Keep the train on the tracks and the plane in the air, and hopefully Microsoft gets working again.
All right, did we get a plane off the ground? Apparently, that's been a plane off the ground this morning. Yeah,
it's missing a phalange. All right, hour 3 is coming up.
Oh man, the building is on fire.
Emergencies and accidents happen. When you're in the middle of a fire or water event, all you want is for things to return to normal as soon as possible. Resto Pros of the Midlands is with you, guiding you through the process and working with you to get your home or office back in working order. They'll answer your questions, discuss procedures, and can act as your advocate when it comes to processing your insurance claim. Resto Pros Midlands, SC.com. Open 24/7 when you need them. Quality that is guaranteed.
Edward Jones is a proud sponsor of Inside the Gamecocks, the show on the Chiefs Sports Network. Call me, financial advisor Eric Ponder, at 864-862-2161 for all your investment needs. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
The electric grid that had been placed under Lambeau so that the field would never freeze.
Those two things are all the NCAA has. That's all they have. They're not worth anything without the men's basketball tournament and now the women's tournament.
Listen to these interviews and more on the JC and Morgan podcast by downloading the Chief Sports app. Part of the Chief Sports Network.
Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com. Gamecock owned and operated.
With a little love and some tenderness, we'll walk upon the water, we'll rise above the mist. With a little peace and some harmony, we'll take the world together, we'll take them by the hand. 'Cause I got him for you. Standing there, your hair was down, your eyes were red, no comb I touched your hair. I said get up and let me see you smile. We'll take a walk together, walk the road a while, 'cause I got a hand for you, I got a hand for you. I wanna run with you, won't you let me run with you?
Welcome back, everybody. Third hour of Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Final hour of the week. It's been kind of a long week here, talking about an uneventful SEC Media Days and Kickoff, but we are live. Of course, John Strickland still with us, hanging in there for the last hour. Thanks, John. And we're joined by Matt Anderson, the late night Gamecock. Well, one of two now. I guess we got to include Alex in that too as well. He's now one of our late night Gamecocks. But Matt, hey, happy to have you, man. Yeah, hey, oh, good, and you sound good.
Is it
too.
good?
We were so a little behind the scenes here, folks. Like when we were firing up the late night show earlier this week, Matt was talking into his microphone, and it was, I mean, you just could not comprehend anything that was coming through there. It was staticky. It sounded like completely over digitized. Well, maybe like some of the music that comes out these days, but no, it was even less coherent than that. And good, we've got good tech rolling, and happy to have you on here, Matt.
Yeah, happy to be here. What's up, Strick? How you doing today?
Pretty good, man. Can't complain. Glad it's Friday.
Hey, gosh.
Yeah. Well, we took a deep dive into the O-line, of course. I mean, it makes sense with Strick being here, and we appreciate that. And he gave us his 8 names of the guys he thinks are potential starters. But not to get run 2 hours into that. I know we want to shift gears to talk a little defense, but apparently John's got some inside info on that too. Surprise, surprise, right? And we've been talking about the depth on defense, Matt, and the ability for this team to if it stays healthy, right, could really wow some folks on that side of the ball. Just from the front even. I mean, I don't remember, John, I mean, how you said what, 2013? It's been over 10 years since this team has had that kind of talent.
I think you have to go back to 2012, 2013 as far as the depth goes. I mean, having plenty of guys you can rotate in to where the guys aren't dog tired in the fourth quarter like we were this past year. I think the depth is as good as it's been in 10 plus years.
Man, yeah, that's incredible. It's a testament not only to the recruiting, but I mean, you got to say the development too, and the retention. That's the other side of this now, is the retention, right, on the roster, that you have been able to keep these guys here and not have them bolt for anywhere for the next, big paycheck.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
No, it's the retention, but it's also what they're able to do in the transfer portal. I mean, we don't talk about defensive tackle this year for South Carolina. We talk about defensive tackle in the future for South Carolina. But as far as rotating bodies, that's why, and John, you tell me if I'm wrong here, I don't see why they would stick with a 3-man front when they have this many bodies and this many defensive tackles they can rotate in. I think you're going to see a more traditional defense this year and able to do things, in that front 7 that you haven't been able to see in maybe 2 years at South Carolina.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I was talking about it earlier, just talking to one of our starting D tackles a few weeks back. I mean, he I'm telling you, his face lit up talking about this defense, just simply because of the depth and the talent that this front 7 has on it. I think at the D tackle spot, you're 5, maybe 6 deep of guys who can play. And then I think at the DN spot, you're at least 4, but you got maybe 5 or 6 that can get out there and play and not have some kind of big drop off. So, and then at linebacker, man, what we saw out of the linebackers the back half of the year when that defense started playing like it did those last 4 or 5 games. I mean, and then you add a few new pieces, and I'm telling people right now, this defense is going to surprise the people. As long as the talent's there, the depth's there, they just got to bring it and put it on the field. But it's exciting. And then, you go all the way back to safety. I think you got 2 of the best safeties in the league, in my opinion.
It's really just corner where there's a little bit of question marks.
Yeah.
But, O'Donnell Fortune has played in the SEC for a long time and played behind some other guys as well. And when you think about the SEC and the wide receivers these teams face, they have 2-3 guys on every team getting drafted every year. So, being the second corner and getting that experience is huge in my opinion, because you're still playing against NFL guys, just even if you're the second cornerback.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the corner position is the thinnest position on this defense. But it seems like every year there's always, or the past, I mean, as long as I can remember, the past, before JC and JC Horn and them were here, since then there's always been kind of like a question mark, who's going to step up. But it's like somebody always steps up, and but that's the thinnest part of this defense as far as depth, in my opinion. I think everywhere else you're pretty loaded on depth, and you got guys that you can plug in to give other guys rest, and you won't see fall off.
And to your point there, John, I mean, and usually sometimes it's a freshman that steps up. I mean,
it is.
And look, I know that this staff was very high on Jalewis Solomon. He has all the athleticism and ability in the world. It's just going to take time. I mean, you can't just step on an SEC field and be Stephon Gilmore. Those are, that's a 10-time All-Pro cornerback, MVP of the league on defense. Been to how many Pro Bowls, and I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. And those guys don't grow on trees. But I know the staff really does think Jalewis Solomon's a 3-year player, not a 4-year player at South Carolina.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, that's what you see. And you gotta have confidence in Coach Gray in that, when you think about the corners, those names who have emerged over the past couple of years, you didn't hear about these guys. Not until they got here and started to develop under Coach Gray and inside the system itself. So it's like, that's like, and you think back to one of the hallmarks of the Spurrier era was grabbing these, lower star, below the radar guys and just getting them in the program and developing the hell out of them. And, I think Coach Gray really fits that mold, and we've seen what that can produce under his tutelage over the past couple of years with him being able to produce these, up there for all SEC talent that are young. I think that's why you see him as the freshman and things like that come out, is because you've got a hell of a developer back there.
Oh, Vakari Swan. I mean, he's a kid that was a 3-star for a lot of the process.
I was just about to bring that up, but you go ahead. You got it.
Yeah, but I mean, 3-star most of the process, ended up getting bumped up to 4. And the biggest competition for South Carolina there at the end was Deion Sanders, Mr. Cornerback himself, and wanted him badly. And that's a kid that's athletic enough to play on offense as well. And then on top of that, John, when's the last time you saw Nicky Memori? Have you seen him lately?
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. He's looking good. He's a stud. He's a stud. That's why I'm telling you, the back half of the defense at safety, our protectors, our guys who come up and nail the running backs.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I feel like between him and Kilgore, I mean, we got two of the best guys back there and playing in the backfield of the defense that possibly in the league. I mean, definitely top 2 or 3 in my opinion.
And you're not even talking about DQ Smith, who, you know, freshman All-American. I mean, a little undersized, but he knows how to play football. And he was just out of position last year because you can't stay in position for 7 seconds. It's hard. Yeah. Go play in NCAA college football, road to glory, and try and run with the wide receiver for 3 seconds, 1 second.
Yeah, we just touched on that before you got on, and maybe you heard it, but
I haven't heard anything. So
all right, well, no, I was making your point. It was to what you're saying is last year we only had 21 sacks the entire year. Only 21 sacks the entire year. That's not a lot. That's not a lot at all. And I told these guys, I think with this front seven that we have and the depth and the talent on it this year, I think you see that increase by 50% to who knows how much more. I think you see at least somewhere in the low to mid 30s, and maybe they surprise us and we get up in the 40s.
What you said a little while ago when I first came on, you kind of compared it to the depth on the 2013 team, the 2012 team, 2011. And something that I think rings true there is you had a Jadeveon Clowney and a Melvin Ingram there, right? Yep. But now you have Dylan Stewart, and everything I've heard about this kid is he is the real deal. And where Clowney had that electric first step for, you just couldn't stop him. And, oftentimes he could overrun plays as a freshman. I've heard Dylan Stewart, while he doesn't have the elite first step that Clowney did, he's going to be really good in run support, getting off blocks, and just being very disruptive. And I think he might start.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance he could be one of our starters. But like I said, I really think the end position, I think we got 4 or 5 really good players that it could be any one of the 4 or 5 guys starting at the end position. Stewart, when I watched him out at spring practice, and then everybody got to see him at the spring game causing havoc. There's a reason he's a 5-star. He is the real deal, and he looks like it too as a true freshman 18-year-old. He looks like it too.
Yeah, it's rare to get that guy in there, right? That's just like, man, you fit the bill, and we haven't even cranked it up yet, that young.
And think about those battles that him and Cam Pringle and Josiah Thompson are going to have over the next 3 years, 4 years.
Oh yeah, I'd love
Josiah
to be a fly
Thompson
on the wall, to see some of that. That would be awesome.
He looks like $1 million. Cam Pringle's, he's lost some of that baby fat, got in that strength and conditioning program, and his transformation from his senior year when he signed to now, I mean, he looks like he's been in the program 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I came in as a true freshman, they actually dropped me down in weight. So made me wrote out a nutrition plan, gave me a target weight. The target weight was to get down to about 270 and then build back up. And sure enough, I came in, I was probably 290, lost 20 pounds because I came in early during the summer. But back when I played, guys didn't come in mid-year from high school. That just wasn't a thing. But I did get here early in the summer and work out the entire summer with the team. So I lost the weight during the first semester of the workouts during summer 1. Then summer 2, just started building it back up. And then obviously after that, I was playing, right around anywhere from about 302 to 315, kind of right in there during my playing days.
Could you tell a difference in that 302 to 315? Like, did you know what you needed to do to change it, or was it just that's how you fluctuated, just based on how much water you drank?
Yeah, it fluctuated. I mean, I could go eat a big meal. All right, I'm 315. Then I go out to practice and I lose 10 pounds. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what a great problem to have, right? Yeah. If we could only do that now at our age, right, John? Yeah, it'd be all right.
would lose 8 to 10 pounds, and especially in a game. I think there was one game, because I would usually, you usually weigh during the week, and then you want to kind of weigh after a game or practice, just because, your hydration level, calories you probably need to intake. I mean, after some games, especially in those September games, man, I would lose 10 to 12 pounds in a game, like no lie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
That's
first of all,
ridiculous.
it's just burning calories. Then the second part is you're just sweating like crazy. So it was pretty easy to do, especially being that big of a guy, that heavy. 10 pounds is nothing. I mean, I can go, I ain't gonna get into that, but
Yeah, right.
Hey, John, how do you think, and this is a little off topic, but I know we got to hit a break here soon, but the difference in nutrition plans now versus when you were in school, I mean, how crazy is that?
when I was in school playing, it was here. It's so far up here, you can't even see my hand, right? It's a big difference. The nutrition plans now, and then, the players can cook their own meals over there. They have a nutritionist right there helping them with anything. They just got all this stuff planned out. It is night and day from what it used to be. Because I'll tell you this is no lie. So road games or a home game, didn't matter, especially home game. We would eat over here in the stadium at around 5 o'clock, all right? They would have fried chicken, prime rib, chicken tender. Just all kind of stuff, man. I would eat and get so full. And then we go to the movies. We go watch a movie, and then we go to the team hotel. We have our meetings. And then our late night snack was cheeseburgers. And these burgers were thick. I used to get 2 of them. I bet they were 10-ounce patties. So I'd eat a pound and a half of burgers before I went to bed. And 5 hours earlier, I'd just eaten a pound of prime rib and 5 pieces of fried chicken. So,
Right.
But then the next day, though, during the game, I lose all that weight. I lose it all the next day. So, just it's fueling up, because the crazy thing is, pregame meal was strict. Okay, pregame meal was you had a choice of grilled chicken breast, pancakes for carbs. You had pasta. And then you had like a marinara sauce to put on the pasta. And then you had like green beans and some salad. So it was like lighter stuff, but carved up. Mm-hmm. And I didn't like to eat a lot before a game. So I would just get stuffed the night before. And then pregame meal, I would eat like one small little piece of chicken. And, what's the pasta called? That it's got the cheese in it and it's wrapped in a circle.
Ravioli? Or
No.
Oh,
No.
tortellini, is that it?
Tortellini.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So that was my go-to. So I would eat a chicken breast, a touch of green beans, and a ton of tortellini. Not a ton, though, because I didn't like to get full. I didn't like that feeling because it felt like it made me sluggish before a game. So I would eat pretty light. But like I said, the night before, we would pig out. I don't know if they're allowed to pig out like that today. But that's how it used to be.
Well, didn't Coach Holtz? He was a big fan of Bernie's for himself, but not for you guys. Bernie's fried chicken.
Yeah. Oh my God. When I was younger, sometimes I'd come into the meeting room with either Bernie's or either Bojangles, and they're like, "Oh, you need to be eating that fried chicken." I'm like, "It's only a 2-piece. I'm good. I need some fuel before practice or whatever." And Coach Spurrier hated it, by the way. Coach Spurrier hated those guys eating fried chicken.
That's what it was. Holtz didn't care, but Spurrier hated it. That's the story I heard.
Holtz didn't care. It was Spurrier who did not like it. He would get pissed if somebody went to Bernie's or Bojangles and he saw him eating it.
I get your. That's not what you should be putting in your body.
What? You want to get that fried chicken?
What? You're going to be fat and slow. You can, I love it. Yeah, that's you don't even think of, we talk about the changing landscape of football and all of that, from the outward perspective and looking in, but it's amazing the internal changes that have gone on in these programs over that same period of time.
Short period of time. I'm telling you, it's short period. And this all just really happened. All this nutrition stuff and all these new staff members that are on staff that never would have been around 10 years ago, 8 years ago. A lot's changed in 8 years. I mean, let's be real. I mean, really, the past 8 years, so much has changed in Power 5 college football. Or, it's Power 4 now, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's crazy, John. When we were out there for the 7-on-7, we ran into some players, didn't really talk to them or anything like that because that's not what we were there to do. We were there to watch the high school kids. Yep. But they're out there and they have personalized shakes just waiting on them outside of the weight room. I mean, it is down to a science of what these kids need to recover quickly because as soon as they leave the weight room, they're going to run up a dirt hill or they're going to go do sprints and they're fueling these kids up the right way, it seems.
Yep. I mean, none of that stuff was going on back when I played. We had a Gatorade fountain in the locker room, sugary Gatorade, just drinking it up. I mean, it was totally different.
It's like, yeah, it's good. It's got electrolytes. Yeah, it's like, yeah, also have too much and be a diabetic if you don't when you stop working out.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The electrolytes in it to hydrate you is great. The sugar, not so much.
Yeah, no doubt.
Delicate balance.
Yeah. Well, let's roll into a break here, gentlemen, and we will keep the show moving here with JB and JC out. Expect at least one, if not both of them, back on Monday. But we will be right back after these messages.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Coach O here, and when I'm not eating average jambalaya or celebrating endless summer in Destin, I like to eat pimento cheese straight out the bucket. And the only pimento cheese I like to eat is from Nana's Porch. It's award-winning, it'll melt in your mouth, it's good on a cracker, it's good in a bowl, it's good on a piece of bread. Also, don't forget Nana's Porch has a hell of a food truck. It's award-winning as well, and they're here for all of your catering needs. So get online, nanasporch.com. It's good. Coach O signing off. Endless summer, go Tiger.
If you're wondering whether a bottle of Chicken Cock whiskey makes a great gift, the answer is absolutely. After all, it's a fine Kentucky straight bourbon that's had that name since 1856, when it was completely appropriate to name a whiskey Chicken Cock. That said, if you're worried your gift recipient might be offended, perhaps a better gift would be a pair of pliers to help remove the stick they've got up there. Chicken Cock Whiskey, a gift as memorable as its name.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is.
Not long now. I think, what are we? 43 days away from kickoff. The clock is counting down. Tick, tick, tick. Everybody's favorite time of year. I was looking here. I don't know. We touched a little bit on it with the corners, but outside of that, what other position groups, guys, do you think have like the most question marks surrounding them? And how confident do you feel that these guys are going to step up and kind of overperform relative to preseason expectations?
Are you talking offense and defense? Or?
Either way. I mean, I feel like we kind of covered a little bit with corner on defense, but I'm wide open. If you feel like there's something in defense we haven't talked about, then yeah, hit it. And I'm kind of excluding special teams in this, although I know kicker's kind of a question mark. I don't know if we've really seen Herrera perform. Is he even going to win the job? I'm assuming that we penciled in Herrera's name as kicker, but has anybody heard any different?
Well, I think on the wide receiver spot is really, to me, I think we have some good players there, and guys are going to have to step up and show that they can, be the guy. Somebody's going to have to step up and be the guy. I've heard Nick Harbor's like OP on College Football 25, so maybe maybe we see that this fall. I know he's been working really hard, and I was happy to see him, step away from the track and, hey, let's get focused on football season, because I think he knew, and I talked to Coach Fry about it some too not too long ago. He says Nick's probably not quite there yet, but he did say Nick will be there in the next Olympics. So watch out is basically what he told me. So I was happy to see him, hey, let's get focused on football. I think with Nick, it's just getting routes down and working on his hands, all right? And you can't blame the guy because, I mean, he mostly played defensive end in high school. He wasn't out catching balls every single day. So I think that's one area that he has to improve on, and I think if he was sitting here with us, he would agree on it. And I've heard he's been working super, super hard on that. So I think wide receiver is my biggest question mark on this football team. But, it's just kind of like I was talking about the cornerbacks. It seems like every year when you come out of camp, you got somebody who just steps up and surprises you. And Xavier Legette was that guy last year. We knew he had talent. We've seen him do some great things in the previous 4 years that he was at South Carolina. But last year, I mean, I just heard all about it. The guy never left the building. He put in so much work, and it paid off on the field. So hopefully we see some more of that this upcoming season with some of the unknowns that we're unsure of who's going to be able to step up and be those top 5 or 6 guys at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, and it was that discussion earlier that kind of spurred that, want to watch player. I would rather not watch a player develop, right? Like Xavier Legette, you didn't really see that much of his development on field, right? Most of that happened behind the scenes in the practice facilities, doing the right things, lifting the weights, all that stuff that we were hearing coming out of it. You see a little bit of that pop a couple of seasons ago, and then it's just like, wow, this guy's a stud, and just the hard work that he put in, behind the scenes to do that. And one of the reasons that we felt like depth, like having to get these top tier wide receivers in there in these recruiting classes. Had a solid one last year, and then you look like you're putting together a pretty good one for 2025, assuming that it holds. Just to have those bodies and that talent sitting on the bench, that and I called it bench depth. You got your roster depth, you're too deep and all that. But what's so important nowadays with all the attrition and changes and flipping that goes on these rosters is you got to have that bench lined up pretty good, or you could potentially lose a lot.
I can tell you that Nick Harbor, everything I've heard, he's just always in the football building. And John, you probably heard the same thing. He's just always there. It's like he doesn't sleep there, but he might as well. The Copeland kid, he looks like $1 million. That kid, from an athletic perspective, physique perspective. Now, I haven't seen him run a route in a Gamecock uniform, but that kid looks like $1 million. I mean, you stack him up against, kids that come into camps and stuff like that, he looks like a 5-star. He just looks bigger and better than everybody else. The Larvadan kid, he's going to be a fan favorite. He's like Mighty Mouse, man. That kid is probably, 3% fat and just athletic as all get out, quick, shifty, all that stuff. I'm also going to tell you, don't sleep on Luke Doty. People forget about Luke Doty.
I agree.
Don't sleep on him. The kid had, in the first drive against Georgia last year, 3 catches for like 37 yards against Georgia's defense. Don't sleep on him. Maybe a Taysom Hill type, but don't sleep on him. I can see a million possibilities with Luke Doty on the field and the complexities that offense can bring. I mean, I've been saying it for a year. I'd love to see Nick Harbour lined up on one side of the field, a short pass to Luke Doty to the right or the left, and then just let him fire because he still has an arm. Those types of things. You get Lenoir, Doty, and Harbour on the field at the same time. Some good stuff can happen. Mazeo Bennett just seems to be, a kid that has seamlessly transitioned to college football.
100%.
Yeah. I'm excited to see him because being a Greenville kid and all that, and I'm an upstate guy anyway, so it was like I'm happy to see him come and glad to see that we won the recruiting battle to get him here because watching him in person like that, that guy's solid.
Yeah,
and he's
I agree. I'm super excited about him, and I think he's going to make an impact on the field this year as a true freshman. I really think, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's the wide receiver number 3 in the slot starting off the year. I mean, the flashes I saw from him being out at spring practice and the spring game, the kid's going to be a great player for us in the future. There's no doubt about it.
A forgotten kid is the Tyshawn Russell. People forget he's only been playing football for 2 years. He's a deep threat. I can see him working in the slot and being pretty successful at different times. But outside of wide receiver, it sounds crazy and what I'm about to say, but a question mark on offense for the rest of the country is Lenoir Sellers. That's a question mark that, it's going to be really fun for Gamecock fans to watch him play because they've been teased, right? They've been teased by him, but he's just the real deal. I don't know how better way to say it. I mean, he's going to have some growing pains like any other quarterback would have playing college football, let alone in the SEC. But the stuff that he has just naturally, it's really, really special.
Yeah, I think my only concern with Lenoir is where's his accuracy. All right, that's really the only concern I have about him. He's a super smart, bright young man. So, and from what I know, he's in there all the time in the film room and learning plays nonstop. So I don't question any of that part. I'm not too worried about it. The athleticism speaks for itself. We've all seen it. I mean, the kid's a blazer. He's a huge guy. We saw that one run against Vandy. The safety or either the corner tries to come up and tackle him, and he just bumps him right off of him and runs on for a touchdown.
I call that the Forrest Gump run because he broke the knee brace as he was running.
yeah. So no worries about any of that. It's just I want to see the accuracy, and I was told that was one thing that was going to be a point of emphasis during springtime is, to get him dialed in. So hopefully, obviously those guys have been throwing just about every day over at the practice facility. So that's just my one kind of worrisome on Sellers. But, that's why we practice and, we'll see how it goes.
And John, to your point there, and I don't know if John's necessarily saying, I don't want to speak for you, that Lenoir has accuracy issues, potentially. I don't think he's saying that, but there's so much reps and repetition that has to complete a pass, it takes 2 people. And I think that's what John's alluding to here.
No. He's got a big arm, great arm, can make any throw. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about timing-wise, plays, your routes, getting to know your wide receivers, and being able to put it on the spot. That's what I'm getting at. Just the accuracy, the movement, and everything and everybody during the play. That's what I'm getting at.
And even think about Spencer. Spencer had every tool in his tool bag, but when he wasn't throwing to Xavier Leggett, there was different chemistry issues there in some cases. Not like players not liking each other. That's not what I'm saying, but it's a lot different throwing to an NFL wide receiver than it is throwing to Tyshawn Russell, who's been playing football for 2 years, and where you have to put the ball. That's why Aaron Rodgers has his buddies.
Yeah. And Spencer spent a lot of time last year 5 yards away from where he was planning on throwing the ball from, just because of the inexperience and the injuries on the offensive line too. Yeah.
Well, on the offensive line, John, I think you probably touched on it earlier. It sounds like y'all talked a little O-line. What does it take for a true freshman to come in and play on the outside, the tackle position where they're talking about Josiah Thompson playing?
Yeah, well, it's tough, and we did touch on this earlier, but I'll just tell you, there's very few guys that can do it. Travell Wharton was one of them, all right? Well, we see he played in the league for 10 years, right? So he did it. Then you have Big Tree come in last year in Georgia game, second game of the year, and he started the whole rest of the season basically at left tackle as a true freshman. So basically, to come in as a true freshman, you're just going to have to have, first of all, the size and the strength. All right, that's a big part of it, because the size and the strength versus high school players versus grown 22, 23-year-old men in the SEC is totally different. And then it all comes down to your mental. It's your mental. And if you can get that down and not have mistakes, and you can combine that with your athleticism at that left tackle position with the strength and the speed of the game, that's how you can come in and play. Josiah has had flashes of that. I've watched him several times this spring. There's a reason a lot of places, I already said this earlier, had him as a 5-star, because he's that kind of talent. The size, he's got good long arms, which is very important when you're playing tackle on the outside. Good long reach to keep a guy off of you, because that gives you leverage on the defensive end. So I think he's got all the tools in the bag. But then you also got to remember the guys that are in front of him that had already been playing. Tree held down that left tackle spot pretty darn good last year as a true freshman. Mm-hmm. So I think he's one that's going to be in the mix to be starting at that left tackle spot. So, but who knows? Like I said earlier, we got 8 guys, I think, that'll be in the running for the starting 5, possibly 9, but definitely 8. And the thing with Tree is, I think Tree is a guard or a tackle. So you could put him either, in either position. So maybe if Josiah is having a great fall camp, well, hey, Josiah probably needs to be at left, or let's boot Tree in the guard. Who knows? There's all kind of different combinations. But it's definitely, it's to me, the hardest position to come in and play straight out of high school is offensive line and quarterback. Those two. Those are the hardest 2 positions on the field. Everywhere else, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier by a mile. So I think that's just why you hardly ever see a true freshman starting, especially in the SEC, on the offensive line. It just doesn't happen often unless you get 5,000 injuries like we got last year, and then we had two true freshmen starting last year.
Yeah. So, John, real quick, when you were at South Carolina, we've heard a lot about cross training between positions across the offensive line. How hard is that for an offensive lineman to grasp cross training 2 positions? And Vershawn Lee was kicked out to left tackle, right tackle, guard, center. He's been everywhere. What is that like, and is it a good thing to cross train?
I think it's a good thing, because it gives you, a bunch of different options to be able to do if something happens injury-wise. It's not too terribly hard. Like I came in, I was a guard, right? So I played right and left guard. I backed up right guard, left guard, and center my sophomore year. I backed up all 3 positions. Also, during my redshirt freshman year, during spring, I also got moved out to right tackle some and played some right tackle. So it's good to have. I mean, we had Jeff Barnes on our team, okay? So Jeff was like the 6th man, basically. Now, Jeff did start some games at left guard, but mostly Jabari Levy started that left guard position in 2003. But Barnes could play center, guard, and tackle. He could play every single one of them. You could plug it in and not miss a beat. So having somebody like that, or having multiple guys like that, only benefits your offensive line better, because say your starting right tackle goes out. Well, Vershawn Lee really is our second best right tackle. And let's move him out because we know such and such, Marquis Anderson, or, I'm just throwing names out here. We know he's got center down pat. So we can put him at center and move Vershawn out to right tackle. So it's things like that. So it's good to have that, diversity, across the line of guys being able to step in wherever.
Yeah, because I kind of compare that to wide receiver, where you're learning different routes and different, where you're lining up. And do you think it's easier for an offensive lineman to do that than to wide receiver to learn the route trees and where they're going and where they're lined up?
100%. And the reason is because you got to remember, the offensive line is working as one cohesive unit on every single play. So every single guy on the line knows what the other guy is supposed to do. And especially the center. The center knows what every single person on the offensive line is supposed to do on every single play. The majority of offense is the center is going up, making the front calls, calling who you're blocking to, and all that. So the center knows every single position. And in turn, all the other guys along the line, they pretty much know what every guy's going to do on every play. So that's why I think it makes it a little bit easier. Now, when you get stuck out at wideout and then you have a slot receiver, well, your wideout, he's never really playing slot, all right? He's the wideout like a Nick Harbor. You're not going to see a lot of Nick Harbor lined up in the slot. You're going to see Nick lined up on the outside. So if you had to get him to come in and play some slot, it's a little more mental, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because it's not like he's working with that guy every play. Like the offensive line is just one cohesive unit working together every single play.
Yeah.
How much of the benefit is it for there being the consistency in offensive coordinator year over year? Especially from like that position group, the offensive line standpoint too. Yeah.
I am quarterback.
I
think it's a very big deal. You don't want to be throwing in new offenses every single year, The more you're in a system, it's just like anything. The longer you do it, the better you get at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with running an offense. The longer you do it, the better you get at it. So like a young Lenore Sellers, okay, well, he was in Loggins' offense last year. He's going to be in it this year. Hopefully he's in it again next year. And it just keeps getting better and better, and it all just comes like clockwork. Like, you just don't even have to think about it. That's another thing, with true freshmen getting in, especially at offensive line, there's so much thinking that has to go on defensive fronts. And that's another thing that makes it super hard for offensive linemen and quarterbacks to just come in and play right away, is because of the learning to play and being in a system. Because you'll have, I ain't gonna lie. Even as a senior, I'd been in the same offense for 5 years, and I still would have a brain lapse, maybe once a game, not all the time, but maybe once a game I'd have one. But a true freshman, we all saw the O-line last year, guys going the wrong way. Just letting guys run free. That's all just because they haven't been in that system long enough to fully just make it like it's second nature.
Yeah, yeah. Well, do you think that'll be greatly impacted by having a new run game coordinator and Sean Elliott, or are we at an advantage here because he is an O-line guy?
Here's the great thing about run game. All right, there's not everybody pretty much, when it comes to run game, everybody pretty much runs similar run plays. You're running your counters, your traps, your zone replays. So I don't think it's that big a difference. I just think having a guy like Sean Elliott, he just kind of knows when to call these plays and when not to call them. And Sean is an offensive line guy. Okay, he's run game coordinator, tight ends coach. He's an offensive line coach. All right.
Yeah.
So it's going to be great having all three of those guys. We basically, like we said earlier, we have three offensive line coaches, and I think that's going to benefit this team a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm looking forward to.
And I think our tight ends are going to be good, man.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah,
I'm super high on those guys. I think the 3 deep that we have, I think they're gonna. I think Josh Simon is going to shock the world.
Yeah,
I really do. I really do.
Yep, and I was going to
let's take
a little quick break though, guys,
Yeah.
because I was going to bring tight ends up to close the show here, because it is like I feel like it's the position group that's kind of flying under the radar and not getting talked about enough, but could potentially blow up. So let's hit this last final break, and we'll be right back to talk some tight ends.
Hey, this is Cornbread Cowboy, and you're listening to the show. We'll be right back.
Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. Thebarndominiumco.com.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more. Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Gamecock owned and operated.
Welcome back, everybody, inside the Gamecocks, the show. Final segment of the week to wrap up here on a Friday. It's been fun. Happy to be back with everybody after our little 2-week break. Glad to see everyone's back. Just to clean up a little bit of stuff here in the chat box. Ed, the show itself will never be behind a paywall. JC and I, when we first started this, that was... that was a line we were not going to cross. The show would always be free. Interaction in the chat box will go to premium. There is no date set for that yet, so no need to worry. Everybody's still welcome to make all the comments, whether they be smart or otherwise, in the chat box for now. But if you want to run your mouth a little later, it might cost you, a couple dollars a month. But just cleaning that up, and like we said before we got into it, looking at the tight ends, guys, nobody's really talking about it, right? Because you got Nick Harbor's the big name on the outside as a wide receiver. You got Lenora Sellers, this touted, redshirt freshman coming in behind under center. But I think one thing that's going to be critical to Sellers' development and the speed at which he gets around this learning curve is one name that you brought up right before we left, John, and Josh Simon. I think that guy is going to be an outlet for Lenoris, who we've all seen is a monster after the catch with the ball in his hand. I mean, This is not a guy that's going to go down easy. and he's going to be a nice outlet for a young quarterback trying to slow the game down early in the season.
Yeah, he's my sleeper pick to have a big year this year.
Yeah.
I think what we saw from him the second half of the season last year can only just improve on into this year. And I talked about this back there in spring when we were on here. It seems like second half of the season last year, every time he caught the ball, guys were just bouncing off of him. They just couldn't take him down. It would take 3 or 4 guys to get him on the ground. And he's a super athletic, great route runner. And so with him, Brady, what's I'm having a brain fart here. What's our freshman's name that we just signed from Savannah? The tight end.
I just had
Michael something. Michael something.
Oh,
I can't remember his last name.
I'll get it. Give me just a second.
But yeah, anyways, with him and then the other young tight ends we have on the roster, I feel like with Sean Elliott as their coach, I really, really feel good about this tight end group, and I think they're going to be able to, a great pass catching tight. Yep, a great pass catching tight end takes so much pressure off your quarterback. Especially when you got some what ifs at wide receiver. Having guys like we have in the tight end room, I think is going to be a real benefit to Lenoris this year.
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you. Last year on my show, I had 10 bold predictions before the North Carolina game for the season. And one of them was the tight ends will combine for 10 total touchdowns. I'm going to go right back to the well this year on that prediction. That's going to be one of my 10. So I think that you can see 10 total touchdowns out of that group this year.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I don't think enough's been being made about Brady Hunt too. I mean, you're talking about a guy here who's got the experience, who we know can play this position. It's like there's no question mark there between Hunt and Simon. I mean, you're set, and now you got Smith coming in, and this is a position group that you can kind of get excited about again. I mean, how many of those like Spurrier years we're seeing tight ends run down the speed touchdown? I mean, just like, playing in the league for years. It'll be nice to add that dimension back.
Yeah, I mean, I just haven't seen Brady play enough to know enough about him. But I have seen Simon, so that's why I bring him up. But everything I've been told about Brady, he's the real deal. So you having Simon and Brady Hunt at tight end, probably throwing Simon in the slot some.
Yeah.
Mismatches for linebackers. I mean,
two of them on the field is a linebacker's nightmare. Right?
No, 100%. 100%. So that's why I'm really high on the tight end room. I'm super excited to see what those guys do this upcoming fall.
And the Michael Smith freshman kid, he came in and he measured at 6'5", and he's up to like 240, 250 pounds.
Yeah, he's a kid. Yeah,
he's a big kid that can run. He can run too.
I mean, everybody in the nation wanted him. There's a reason. Yeah. Okay,
right.
There's a reason he was a highly ranked recruit, big kid, and he's got speed, agility. I'm looking forward to him too. But that's just what I'm saying. You have Simon and Hunt. And then you bring in a guy like him, and then what's the other young freshman tight end from last year's team?
Elksness, is that the one? Nick Elksness or
Cox? Talking about the transfer?
Cox, Connor Cox.
Connor Cox.
Connor Cox. I've heard some good stuff on him too. So I'm just I'm digging the tight end room for this year, and I think it can be a big part of the offense, downfield and run blocking.
Yeah, it's going to be critical, I think, just as the defense is going to be critical in that first quarter of the season to kind of, stand up and make sure you don't feel too much pressure on the young quarterback. Just having these big targets in the middle of the field that are so athletic is going to help him immensely. And it'll also benefit your weapons at wide receiver, because it's not everybody's going to be keying in on any of that. And the more you can keep the other side guessing, as we know in football, the better off you are.
I think the tight ends are the key to the offense this year. I really do think the tight ends are the key to the offense, because at running back, you have Rocket Sanders, who's proven. You got talent behind him. Oscar Attaway can get the job done. And then the Jerron Howell kid looks like he's the next in line down the road to be the guy. But when you can get a running game going and then you can release pressure with those tight ends, the tight ends are the key to the offense, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I agree.
I'm excited. It's going to be fun this year, guys. It's going to be fun. But damn, I just looked at the clock, y'all. It's 1:50. We made it. We made it through a whole hour. Now, all by ourselves. Look, we've grown up so much. No, we appreciate it. Strickland.
Yeah, JB's been holding his breath the entire time.
No, that's all right. No, yeah. Listen, it's more. We all hold our breaths when it's just me and JC, but those turn out to be real fun. Oh yeah, that's all right. But no, John, thank you. We appreciate you doing 2 hours with us. Matt, thanks for the short notice, and everybody, of course, we appreciate everybody coming in on a Friday. I'm trying to think of anything happening over the weekend that we need to be aware of with the school, but I don't think it's too much. So everybody, take you a couple days off, drink you a little bourbon, have you a beer, smoke some meat, and let's get out there and enjoy.
I'm actually about to throw some ribs on the smoker.
Yes, sir.
That's what John had to do this afternoon.
Hey, man, listen.
Well,
let's
I
get out there.
I got to work too. But I'm going to toss some ribs on the smoker.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, everybody. Thank you very much for Matt, John, JB, JC, of course, who's up, and I actually get to see JC a little later tonight. I'm excited about that. But everybody, have a great weekend here from all of us at Inside the Gamecocks, the show. We will see you on Monday, a few more days closer to kickoff.